Chapter 436. Bai Xiu was a perfectionist. He didn't like things that weren't perfect. For example, a shirt with a small hole in it, a pimple on his face, a fruit tree that only blossomed but didn't bear fruit, a road that didn't have an end. These were all things that were hard for him to accept. He liked to read and he read a lot of books. But he still felt that he didn't read enough and that he didn't read enough. So he was still reading more and more books and reading more and more books. On his way back, he encountered two people fighting, and because of a black-robed man, he had a piece of his flesh cut off. This was very imperfect for him. He needed perfection, and he needed to make his heart feel smooth and his thoughts clear. So, he decided to kill the black-robed man. Bai Xiu held the long sword in his hand and walked towards the black-robed man step by step. He looked very relaxed, as if he was going to kill a chicken or a rabbit. With a leap, he floated up into the air. The long sword in his hand was raised high above his head, and he slashed at the black-robed man's head. Whoosh! The soft sword was infused with qi, and the sword let out a sound like a dragon's roar. The long sword swung, and its momentum was majestic. The black-robed man didn't dare to take it head-on. His black robe shook, and a poisonous white smoke sprayed out to conceal himself. At the same time, he retreated. Bai Xiu held his breath, and his body changed directions in the air, avoiding the attack of the white smoke. Like a rock spreading its wings, he chased after the black-robed man at an even faster speed. Still holding the long sword high, he slashed at the black-robed man's head again. It looked like this guy had obsessive-compulsive disorder. If he said he wanted to slash someone's head, he would do it. He couldn't stab the chest, couldn't chop off an arm, and couldn't stab an eye. He had to split the head in half. The black-robed man was still retreating. The tip of his foot touched the ground, and his body was already flying backward. The black robe fluttered in the wind, like a gliding bat with its wings spread. Whoosh whoosh. The long sword in Bai Xiu's hand swung twice in the air, and after using the force of the sword to adjust his posture, he once again slashed at the black-robed man's head. The first spurt of energy, the second decline, and the third exhaustion. After 3 consecutive strikes, he should have lost his will to fight. However, Bai Xiu was completely unaffected by this kind of common sense. Each sword strike was fiercer than the one before, and each sword strike was drier than the one before, and each sword strike was faster than the one before. The Thousand Leaves Army's sword was a dangerous move. Every strike was tricky and dangerous. Every strike was unexpected. Every strike was like a clap of thunder. Bai Xiu's sword was upright and upright, radiating boundless light. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated, nothing strange, and nothing showy. A straight stab or a high slash would increase the pressure on the opponent, making it difficult for them to parry. A heavy sword without a sharp edge, great skill without skill. Bai Xiu's swordsmanship had already reached a higher level, and he could be said to be a master of his generation. His body was like a swimming dragon, and his sword was like a rainbow. He went straight for the black-robed man. The black-robed man couldn't dodge in time. Just as the sword was about to strike his head, the robe on his body suddenly puffed up. Black Robe took the initiative to greet Bai Xiu's long sword, blocking Bai Xiu's line of sight. Hiss! The long sword struck the black robe, splitting it in half. The black-robed man used the black robe to use the golden silkworm shedding its carapace. While the black robe was holding Bai Xiu back, he had already pounced on Bai Xiu from the side. He wore a copper claw on his right hand. The surface of the claw was dark blue. It was obvious that it had been soaked in venom for many years. The claw reached for Bai Xiu's back, determined to tear a piece of flesh from his body. Bai Xiu had just split open the black robe. He was at the moment when he had used up all his strength. Whether it was changing his move or turning around, it was extremely difficult. Bai Xiu did not change his move. He still maintained the posture of holding the sword with both hands and slashing down. The black-robed man's speed increased. The copper claw in his hand was already about to touch the flesh on Bai Xiu's neck. A sinister smile appeared on his face. His only eye was also filled with the joy of victory. He knew the power of his ghostly claw. As long as it touched Bai Xiu's skin, his body would rot and he would die. Closer. A little closer. Life and death were only a thin line away. Bai Xiu's body was falling, and the black-robed man's body was also falling. Plop. Bai Xiu and the black-robed man landed on the snowy ground at the same time. Their shoes made crunching sounds as they stepped on the deep snow. Bai Xiu maintained the posture of holding the sword, his back facing the black-robed man. The black-robed man stood behind Bai Xiu, pain and confusion in his eyes. How could this be? How could this be? He had clearly won. The ghostly claw in his hand was about to tear off a piece of flesh from his neck. As long as his ghostly claw touched his body, he would be able to tear off a piece of flesh from his neck. Then that piece of flesh would rapidly rot. His flesh, meridians, bones, hair, his entire body would rot into a puddle of mud. Swish! Bai Xiu pulled out the long sword in his hand. He held a long sword in his right hand. He used that sword to split open the black-robed man's black robe. He also held a long sword in his right hand. When the black-robed man lunged at him from behind, he used this long sword to stab through the black-robed man's abdomen. Bai Xiu had two swords, two flexible swords. He purposely showed his back to the black-robed man, pretending that he couldn't turn around or change his moves. He lured the black-robed man to attack him, and then ended the battle in one fell swoop. Whether it was the timing, acting, or ruthlessness, they were all impeccable. Bai Xiu pulled the long sword away. Just as the black-robed man's abdomen was about to spurt blood, Bai Xiu kicked out and sent the black-robed man flying. Bai Xiu didn't like to be stained with blood. Poochie, the black-robed man's body fell to the ground, then slid on the ice until he hit a hard object. Shifu, the current Snake Lord, saw that his master was injured and hurriedly rushed in his direction. The current Snake Lord wanted to help the black-robed man up, but the black-robed man waved his hand to stop him. Master, how are your injuries? The current Snake Lord worriedly looked at the black-robed man and asked, I'll heal you. Do you still remember the first time you were bitten by a snake? The black-robed man looked at his disciple with a gentle smile. That ugly face had a touch of kindness to it, and it actually looked more pleasing to the eye. A person's appearance was born from their heart. If they didn't have any evil thoughts in their heart, a person's appearance would naturally give others a good impression. I remember, the current Snake Lord said. He and his sister followed the black-robed man back. In a rundown courtyard, he saw so many snakes for the first time. There were snakes crawling on the ground, standing on the walls, coiling on the trees, and even the wooden door was covered with snakes. The door didn't have a lock, and this kind of courtyard didn't need a lock. No one dared to walk into a snake's nest. He and his sister were terrified. When they turned around to run, a green-eyed snake fell on his head. He was about to open his mouth to scream, but the green-eyed snake bit his lips. That was the first time he was bitten by a snake. From then on, he formed a lifelong bond with these cute and cold animals. Before I brought you back, I didn't want you to raise snakes with me. I wanted you to stay at my place for one night and send you away the next day. Do you still remember how you reacted after being bitten by a snake? You grabbed the snake and held it in your hand, carefully looking at it. Your eyes looked at it curiously, and it also looked at you curiously. At that time, I knew that you were the same kind of person as us. The black-robed man recounted the past that had already been buried in the river of memories. That's why I kept you here. I taught you how to raise snakes, how to get close to snakes, how to control snakes, and how to fight snakes. You were naturally close to those snakes, and those snakes never rejected you. You performed very well, and in many ways, you were even better than me as a teacher. But he found us and asked me to work for them, to become his snake slave. If I didn't agree, he would kill all of us, including you and your sister. I agreed, dug out my own snake's eye and gave it to him, turning myself into a mindless killer. The black-robed man chuckled and said, Isn't this what we're good at? These years, I've killed many people and done many evil deeds. I'm tired and annoyed. When will it end? If I kill one, there will be another. If I kill one day, there will be another. As long as I don't die, I will continue to kill, continue to commit evil deeds. Most importantly, I don't know who I will kill next, good or bad, men or women, even the elderly and children. I don't know them, and they don't know me. I've killed so many that I've become numb. Teacher, who is it? Who are they? Who are you, a snake slave? Who came to find you? They also didn't come to find you? The black-robed man spoke with a sorrowful voice. This is the nightmare of us snake lords, a punishment. We have harmed many people, so there will be even more vicious people to punish us. They used your and your sister's lives to force me to work for them. Then when you grew up, they used your sister's life to force you to work for them. As long as our snake lord bloodline continues, they will have generations after generations of snake slaves to work for them. We can't resist, we will become their puppets for generations, teacher. The black-robed man gestured for his disciple to take off the demonic claw on his hand and dip his finger in the blood of the wound on his abdomen. Then he placed the blood-stained finger on his disciple's forehead and released an S-shaped snake symbol. The black-robed man grabbed his disciple's hand and spoke with a solemn voice. I pass the title of Snake Lord to my disciple Mui, to worship the spirit of the snake god, to love the people of our race. May the heavenly God protect our race, to live and die with dignity, to be free for generations to come. Flesh does not rot, snake blood boils. There was a record of the Snake Lord in the 100 Lives Classics, born in Xianxia, the king of snakes. The flame of inheritance is passed on, the old dies and the new rises. At this point, the current Snake Lord was officially crowned. Chapter 437. The sky was getting darker and the wind was getting colder and colder. Even the snow that had stopped falling started to flutter again. Fang Yan had never hated winter in Yanjing so much. The car was stuck in the pit. Fang Yan could only run on his feet. The soles of his shoes were already worn out. Only the uppers tied to his ankles were a burden. He had already torn off the 2 rags. Fang Yan stepped on the ice with his bare feet. His bare feet collided with the surface of the ice, making a pa-pa-pa sound. His head was forward and his upper body was slightly bent, maintaining a high-speed charging posture. His face was stiff from the cold wind. His eyes were squinted from the snow. He was burning with anxiety, but his face was cold and calm. This was the most dangerous moment. This was the most important moment. The more dangerous and important it was, the more he couldn't make a single mistake. He ran too fast, like a ghost in the wilderness. Screech! Fang Yan's body came to an abrupt stop. Because he was running too fast, his feet spun a circle on the spot to keep his body straight. In front of him stood a man in black with a black mask. I'm assassin, the man in black said. Fang Yan didn't say anything and rushed toward the man in black. No one could stop him, be it the Fist King or assassin, Yama or God. He had to save his father. He had to save his father. Unless his father died. Unless he died. The flame was passed on. The old died and the new was established. In other words, only when the old Snake King died would a new Snake King be born. The current Snake King naturally understood this. It was because his master had disappeared for many years that the outside world thought he was dead. That was why he was called Snake King. Of course, it was just a coronation among the people. He didn't get the blessing of the previous Snake King. Now, the black-robed man was dipped in God's blood, drew a snake talisman, and personally passed the position of Snake King to his disciple. This ceremony was simple and important. Master, the current Snake King, the only Snake King, grabbed his master's hand and shouted in a sorrowful voice. You'll be fine. Nothing will happen to you. When you were not here, I also learned some medical skills and some voodoo. I can help you heal. You won't die. I can't let you die. He took out a bunch of medicine bottles from his pocket, uncorked them, and poured all the red and white powders onto the wound on his master's abdomen. His black clothes had long since been dyed a brownish red. Blood was flowing out of the wound. The Snake Lord waved his hand and said, I won't die, I just want to put an end to it. Some things should have been settled many years ago. But at that time, I was still afraid, so I couldn't go that far. Master, you don't need to do anything. Whatever you want to do, I will do it for you. You just need to live a safe and peaceful life, the current Snake Lord said anxiously, like a drowning man grabbing onto the last piece of wood that could save his life. For the black-robed man, the current Snake Lord and his sister were his only family in this world. He had no love, no marriage, and didn't know what Taoism was. He had never experienced being waited for. The only people who had waited for him were the 2 little ones he picked up from the outside. So, when those people used their lives to threaten him, he dug out his own snake eye and gave it to them, using his life's worth to trade with them. He didn't have a family, but he longed for one. He didn't understand emotions, but he gave them his most sincere feelings. For the current Snake Lord, wasn't it the same? His sister was kidnapped, and he originally thought that she was her only family in this world. So, he risked his life to kill Fang Yen. After the mission failed, he put down his dignity and personal reputation to negotiate with Fang Yen, begging Fang Yen to give him a chance. He didn't even hesitate to follow his master's old path and become someone else's snake slave. Snake slave, that was such a heavy and humiliating title. He didn't expect that he would eventually encounter such a dilemma. On one side was his master who gave him the snake eye, and on the other side was his master who saved him and taught him how to live. This mission was crueler than ever before. His sister's fate was unknown, and his master was about to leave him. These were the two remaining family members of the current Snake Lord in this world. How could the Snake Lord watch his master die without doing anything? The black-robed man climbed up from the ground with difficulty and said with a smile, "You have your own mission. Your mission is to live and save your sister. If one day you two get married and have a child, give him to a good family to raise. Don't let him follow you to raise snakes. The Snake Lord's bloodline is too cruel." "Master." The black-robed man patted the Snake Lord's shoulder and prepared to leave. Thump! The Snake Lord knelt down. His head hit the ground heavily, and he kowtowed 3 times to the black-robed man. The black-robed man waved his hand and didn't turn around. "Are you leaving?" Bai Xiu stood in front of the black-robed man with his sword and coldly said, "I don't agree." He said he would kill the black-robed man, so he would kill the black-robed man. He must do what he said, even if he only said it to himself in his heart. Perhaps the black-robed man had his own tragic fate, or perhaps he had his own difficulties. But who cared? He ran into Swallow Fort's territory to commit murder and arson. This was a huge crime. He had to make him stay for Swallow Fort. Anyone from Swallow Fort who saw him must think of a way to make him stay. The black-robed man had his own family to protect, while Bai Xiu had his own standpoint to uphold. One in black and one in white, one in the dark and one in the light, they were natural enemies. The black-robed man stopped, looked at the undisguised killing intent in Bai Xiu's eyes, and said softly, "I'm already a dying man. If you let me go, perhaps it'll be good for everyone. I'll fulfill a wish and you'll get rid of a problem. For you, a crisis will be averted. For Fang Yen, one less opponent. First of all, your wish is not my wish. Second of all, the crisis you speak of is not a crisis for me. As for whether Fang Yen has one less opponent, that has nothing to do with me. I think he'll be more than happy to kill his enemies himself." Bai Xiu was not moved by the black-robed man. "You can't leave." He was a gentle person on the outside, but stubborn on the inside. Once he made up his mind, he would not change it. Except for the one standing in front of him was his mister. His mister. The black-robed man showed a regretful expression, saying, "Why do you think you can definitely make me stay? Just because you stabbed me with your sword? Do you understand the meaning of the Snake Lord? Have you experienced the true power of the Snake Lord? The youngsters of Swallow Fort are a bit overconfident. Sometimes it's really annoying. Why not try?" Bai Xiu proudly said. Bai Xiu's stab was extremely ruthless, piercing through the black-robed man's abdomen. Even after the Snake Lord poured all of his medicinal powder on the wound, it alleviated the black-robed man's injury. However, this was not enough to completely stop the bleeding. The black-robed man ignored the wound on his abdomen and took the initiative to rush towards Bai Xiu. Bai Xiu also stabbed forward with his sword, aiming for the black-robed man's chest. One was like a ferocious tiger hunting its prey, the other like a butterfly plucking flowers. One was fierce, the other light. Their bodies were about to collide in an instant. What was surprising was that the black-robed man was unarmed, and actually used his own flesh and blood to meet Bai Xiu. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the long sword in Bai Xiu's hand trembled, producing a dozen or so sword sparks. The tip of the sword was like a snake's head, looking for the most suitable place to attack. The black-robed man punched out, his arms striking towards the long sword in Bai Xiu's hand. Whoosh! The wind from the punch was sharp and domineering. The flexible sword in Bai Xiu's hand changed from a stab to a slash. He only needed one slash to take away the black-robed man's arm. However, his eyes turned cold, and he once again changed from a slash to a stab. The tip of the long sword once again let out a whooshing sound like a viper's tongue, stabbing towards the black-robed man's chest. It was as if he was purposely letting the black-robed man go. The black-robed man's fist blasted over. The wind from the fist blew Bai Xiu's long hair that was tied up into a bun. The long sword in Bai Xiu's hand stabbed into the black-robed man's chest, fresh blood gushing out along the blade. With every step the black-robed man took, that long sword stabbed in a little more. However, the black-robed man did not have the intention of stopping, still pouncing towards Bai Xiu fearlessly. A stance of wanting to fight to the death with Bai Xiu. His body was about to be pierced by the long sword very soon. Once again, another hole was pierced through it. However, Bai Xiu did not let him have his wish. He kicked out, sending the black-robed man who was pouncing towards him flying. A few drops of fresh blood dripped onto Bai Xiu's wrist. A heart-wrenching pain came. The flesh on the back of that hand actually started to turn a charred black color. The Snake Lord actually turned his own body into a medicinal storehouse, and that red blood became a murderous poison. If Bai Xiu let him approach just now, most likely Bai Xiu's entire body would be corroded into charcoal because of being stained with his blood. The black-robed man's body fell heavily to the ground. Crack! Fang Yixing, who had been lying on the ground with half of his body covered in snow, suddenly flipped over, raised the long sword in his hand high up, and stabbed it into the chest of the black-robed man who had fallen right next to him. Screech! The black-robed man's chest was stabbed, and his body that had just wanted to sit up weakly drooped down. Fang Yixing laughed heartily, shouting at the top of his lungs, "I said I would slash you, I will slash you, I did it, I did it." He didn't want to kill the enemy, he just wanted to slash his opponent. He did it, he finally did it. Chapter 438. Huaxia's proverb says, "The spear is the king of all weapons, the sword is the king of all weapons, and the rod is the leader of all weapons." The old drunkard was cleaning his spear. It was a silver spear, made of refined steel. The tip of the spear reflected a cold light. The old drunkard was good at using spears, but he rarely used them. The spear was heavy and slender. The spear's momentum was mighty and domineering. Once the momentum of the spear was connected, it would become an impenetrable spear formation. It fit the old drunkard's invincible image very well. However, the old drunkard hadn't used a spear for a long time, including when he crossed the East Ocean and challenged the 37 East Islands. Because he used his strength to the extreme, what he needed to learn now was how to save it. So he started using his sword or his fists. He had kept this phoenix spear for a long time, but after his meridians were destroyed in the battle with the dragon god, he never took it out again. The silver spear was covered in dust in the corner, so he took it out and cleaned it. The wooden door of the courtyard was pushed open. Fang Hui was sitting in a wheelchair, looking at the old drunkard cleaning his spear in the room and asked, "Why are you cleaning your spear?" "The killing intent is too strong," the old drunkard said indifferently. When the killing intent is strong, the spear can be used to show its power. Fang Hui sighed softly and said, "Your body hasn't recovered yet, you can't use your strength, just rest well." Fang Yan went out, Fang Hao went out, Xianxia also went out with his people. The heroes and warriors also went out. Fang Yan went out, Fang Hao went out, Zhao Qing went out, the heroes and warriors also went out, I can also go out. The old drunkard put the dusty handkerchief into his pocket, stood up with the spear in his hand, and as he passed by Fang Hui, he loudly said, "I'm not going out as Huaxia's Azure Dragon, I'm going out as a member of the Fang family. I don't have strength, but I have martial arts. I don't have martial arts, but I have brute force. I kill with blood, cut with knives. That will always be useful." Fang Hui laughed and said, "Then let's go. I'll recite a poem for you." The old drunkard pushed open the back door of the courtyard and quickly disappeared in the snow. The old wooden door creaked as it was blown open and closed by the wind. Fang Hui's voice was hoarse and sorrowful as he recited an ancient poem, 10 years Yen Fang, drinking the Han River. They were both spinning wheels. Regret that we met in the past, 3,000 miles away, 3,000 miles away. The heroic spirits of the universe are tranquil and generous, willing to serve in mere ink and brush. The ambition of a man wants a spear and a sword. Drunk in the autumn wind at the Yuan Gate, watching the setting sun and flags set in red. I love the snow on the edge of the clouds, a cold horn, the smooth sand and fine grass, a few points of flying swan. As Fang Hui chanted, he slapped the handle of the wheelchair with his palm. His eyes passed through the wooden door and the courtyard wall to look into the distance. Fang but he palm he Fang he, but he was of, but he was. Yen Fang. And the feelings of the lake and the sea, the friendship of the golden orchids. Don't regret that the jade cup is empty. Of gods. Of. Protect the return of the Fang family's children. Heavenly gods and great immortals, ancestors of the Fang clan, please ensure the return of the Fang clan's youngest daughter. Protect the return of the Fang family's children. Heavenly gods and great immortals, ancestors of the Fang clan, please ensure the return of the Fang clan's youngest daughter. Protect the return of the Fang family's children. Again and again, again and again. Like an old crow cawing, like a cuckoo crying blood. As expected of an assassin. He was very fast. It was so fast that it was unbelievable. The only flaw was that this idiot had chosen the black invisibility cloak for the sake of showing off. Did he not know that on the vast expanse of white snow, black was the most conspicuous color? Fang Yen felt very strange. How did the mastermind find so many experts to attack him? He was just a nobody. Was it worth it? He already understood that this was an ambush aimed at him. Their target was not his father, Fang Yixing. Fang Yixing was just a scholar. To them, he was just a useless person without any influence or compatibility. Why would they spend so much effort to kill him? Their target was Fang Yen. They wanted to harm Fang Yixing to lure Fang Yen out. To summon him out of Swallow Dock and then carry out a killing spree. Their goal was to kill Fang Yen. From the traps they had set up and the experts they had arranged, it could be seen that they would not stop until they achieved their goal. Fang Yen was the victim. He did not have any choice. If he could, he was willing to sacrifice everything, spend billions of his family's wealth, give up his dignity and honor. He was willing to kneel to this black-clothed man and the experts he might face next. As long as they were willing to let him go. As long as they gave him time to save his father. He had a very bad feeling in his heart. He was worried that his father had already died or was in trouble. He hoped that it was the latter. This was the best thing he could imagine at this moment. Fang Yan's eyes were blood red. He looked like a poisonous snake whose mind had been taken away by the fighting snake dance. He was so anxious that his face was red and his eyes were bloodshot. The assassin's attack failed again. The scimitar in his hand drooped down. It looked weak. His eyes that were covered by the black gauze were filled with shock and disbelief. There was actually someone who could avoid his cross slash? 1 slash, 10 slashes, 10 slashes. 10 slashes were unleashed in an instant. It sealed off all the routes of attack or retreat. How did he avoid it? He panted lightly. He used a special method to quickly adjust his breathing so that his body was in the best state. After every charge, there would be a period of emptiness. He needed to use his strength and fighting spirit to fill up this period of emptiness. Otherwise, it would give the opponent an opportunity to take advantage of him. The assassin rushed out again. He raised the scimitar in his hand high. His body made gaudy and complicated movements in front of Fang Yen. Fang Yan's body rushed forward, straight into the saber array created by his dozens of slashes. When Fang Yen retreated again, the scimitar was in Fang Yan's hand. The saber was not stained with blood. It was as if it had never been used. A thin red line appeared on the assassin's neck. The thin line became thicker and thicker. Then blood spurted out. The assassin's eyes widened. Even now, he still did not understand what had happened. What he did not know was that no matter how fast he had to stop in Fang Yan's Tai Chi domain. The disguise he made could not deceive Fang Yan's heart of Tai Chi whether he took the X line or the S line. Fang Yan only needed to find the line between him and himself. Snatch the saber. Just in an instant, Fang Yan threw the scimitar in his hand to the ground. Then he rushed forward again. Fang Yixing would not sympathize with the black-robed man. For him, the black-robed man was his biggest enemy at the moment. Whether it was kidnapping Zhou Fan and poisoning him, or intercepting and killing him on the way, he had countless reasons to kill him. A good person? What kind of good person would use such a vicious trick on an old and young family? Fang Yixing was the head of the family. He had the responsibility and obligation to ensure the safety of his family and protect his loved ones from harm. Even if he was not strong enough, he would not abandon such a responsibility. However, Fang Yixing knew that he was not strong enough. He knew that he had no chance of winning against the black-robed man. Therefore, he tied the long saber to his arm and fused himself with the long saber. He would fight the black-robed man to the death. He was willing to give up his life. All he wanted was to slash the black-robed man with his saber. In that case, if Fang Yan encountered him, it would not be so difficult. He was afraid that the black-robed man would hurt his son. It was a very stupid, very barbaric, and very helpless way of giving up. Because, for a cultured person like Fang Yixing, this was the only thing he could do. However, he had never been able to do it. After he was sent flying by the black-robed man, he fainted for a long time. More than half of his body was covered in snow. The ice and snow on the ground froze his limbs, creating a natural bed of ice for him. Only when his head was about to be sealed by the ice and snow did he suddenly wake up. His body was weak and powerless. Even opening his eyes was a very difficult thing to do. He heard the black-robed man's voice. He also heard Bai Xiu's voice. Bai Xiu was the most outstanding young man in Swallow Fort. Of course, this evaluation had to be added. After his son's heart of Tai Chi broke through again, he became a young man who could compete with Bai Xiu. Yi Wen of the Yi family was also an outstanding young man. She was even known as the #1 person in the younger generation of the inner Jianghu. Unfortunately, she was a woman. This was such a pity for the Yi family. Fang Yixing knew very little about Bai Xiu. The two of them could only be considered acquaintances. He knew that Bai Xiu was outstanding and proud, but he did not know what kind of person Bai Xiu was. But he knew that Fang Yan did not like Bai Xiu, because Bai Xiu had stolen the girl he liked the most. Fang Yixing did not move. He did not move at all. He was waiting for his strength to recover, waiting for the opportunity to slash. When the black-robed man was kicked away by Bai Xiu again, when the black-robed man happened to be lying next to Fang Yixing, his opportunity came. He flipped over and stabbed out with the blade he had dreamed of. He felt that he was complete. Shifu! Snake Sovereign shouted anxiously. The current Snake Sovereign had a smile of relief on his face, but he could no longer speak. Blood gushed out from his chest, drenching almost half of his body. He clenched one hand into a fist, and the energy in his body surged toward his head. Bang! Countless white dots flew out of the countless holes on his face. These dots were like silkworm chrysalises that stuck to Fang Yixing's face and body. They began to wriggle and quickly burrow into Fang Yixing's body. These were the ghost's sorrow chrysalises that fed on human flesh, blood, and bones. The real Snake Sovereign was a vicious and venomous snake. Chapter 439. Fang Yixing's stab was very fierce, and it pierced right into the black-robed man's heart. His heart had already been pierced, and even a great principal golden immortal would not be able to save him. The black-robed man knew his situation, so he used the last of his strength to spray the ghost's worry snake chrysalis out of his face. When he felt his heavy head lighten up, he finally closed his eyes slowly. The black-robed man died in battle. The curtains fell on the snake monarch. He died pitifully and miserably. Even in death, he did not fulfill his wish. Master! The snake monarch rushed over and hugged his master's body. The snake monarch's body was dripping with blood, and his body gradually became cold. Fang Yixing's body twitched nonstop, and his exposed skin had already turned purplish-black. Originally, his head and face were frozen stiff, and his hair and eyebrows were covered in frost. However, in just a few seconds, he began to sweat profusely, as if he was being roasted by a high temperature. His nose began to bleed, and black blood flowed out. Then his eyes, mouth, ears, and even some of the newly formed holes on his face began to bleed. The chrysalis found a new body to attach to, and began to feast on the fresh blood and flesh. All the blood was black in color. The blood had already been stained with the venom of the chrysalis, and became a pool of unusable blood. Fang Yixing's hands scratched his face randomly. He wanted to tear off a piece of skin and a piece of flesh to pull out those little bugs from his body. However, this was simply too difficult. His face and body were badly mutilated from his scratches. Bai Xiu walked over and looked at Fang Yixing, who was lying on the ground in pain. He frowned slightly. After hesitating for a moment, he used the tip of his sword to stab Fang Yixing's 18 acupuncture points. When those acupuncture points also began to bleed, Fang Yixing's body finally calmed down. He cut off Fang Yixing's pain nerves, so he did not have to endure such pain. Of course, he did not have to bear any pain. He became a vegetable who did not understand pain and cold. In less than a minute, Fang Yixing was tormented by the chrysalis that had drilled into his body, and looked like he was neither human nor ghost. He looked like he had aged several decades. Bai Xiu squatted on the ground, looked at Fang Yixing and asked, "What do you have to say?" He knew that with Fang Yixing's body condition, he wouldn't be able to hold on any longer. The last snake monarch had planted a pupa before he died, and even the current snake monarch had no way of taking it out. What's more, Fang Yixing had just stabbed Snake Lord's master to death. Snake Lord might not be willing to help Fang Yixing take out the monsters in his body that made people want to die. Fang Yixing's face was covered in blood and he looked very scary. He looked at Bai Xiu with a fawning smile. She wasn't trying to curry favor with him, but rather, she was begging him to pass on her words. Because Bai Xiu was the only person he could entrust it to. I've always been proud of Fang Yan, proud to have such a son. He's very talented in the path of martial arts, and he's also very smart. I don't need to tell him this, he knows this. Fang Yixing said softly. I don't know how far he can go in the future, but I know that he will go very, very far in the future. He will go to the place that we, the ancestors, can't see. I firmly believe this, because he's my son, although I, as his father, can't be like him. No matter how hard I try, I can't be better than him. I trust Fang Yan very much, so I have nothing to say. My father only hopes that he can take care of himself, and I know that Fang Yan can take good care of him. I want you to pass on a message to Lu Wan. Fang Yixing's eyes were sad, and 2 streaks of bloody tears slid down his cheeks. He said with a sad and regretful voice, I can't tell her face to face, and I can't say it in front of her. I love her. I've never said this before, and I won't have the chance to say it in the future. If I don't say it now, I may never be able to say it to her in this lifetime. I, Fang Yixing, have been mediocre all my life, and I may not have the chance to enter the ancestral hall of the Fang family after I die. If I have the chance to enter, write on my plaque that I'm the husband of a good woman and the father of a good son. Fang Yixing reached out to grab Bai Xiu's hand, and begged, bring it back for me. I will bring it back. Bai Xiu nodded and said. Thank you, Fang Yixing said in a weak voice. His hand fell down, and he closed his eyes unwillingly. Fang Yixing of Swallow Dock died in battle. Fang Yan finally arrived. He saw his grandfather's disciple, Wang Dong, and his father, Fang Yixing. He saw 2 corpses. Fang Yan's hair was disheveled, and his clothes were torn. He ran over barefooted. His eyes were full of murderous intent, and he looked like a mountain ghost or a savage man. He knelt in front of Fang Yixing and didn't dare to touch his body. There was no sadness or joy on his face, as if he had become an idiot. Yes, Fang Yan had indeed become an idiot. He couldn't accept the fact in front of him, and he didn't want to accept the fact in front of him. How could his father die? How could his father die? Fang Yan, get up and practice. Dad, it's only 6 o'clock. The sun isn't even up. The ancients dance at the sound of the rooster, and the rooster has crowed 3 times. Get up quickly and don't be lazy. A father was strict, because he couldn't do it himself, so he hoped that his son could do it. He put all his hopes and efforts on Fang Yan. This was also the reason why Fang Yan had a grudge against him, and the relationship between father and son had never been so close. Fang Yan had a good relationship with his mother, Lu Wan, but he lacked friendly communication with his father, Fang Yixing. Fang Yixing liked to scold his son with a straight face, but Fang Yan didn't fall for it at all. He felt that his son was stubborn and inflexible. Conflicts between the two often broke out. Fang Yan, there are 3 mistakes in the rules for a disciple that you wrote down from memory today. Go and copy it 30 times. Are you going to copy the mistakes 30 times? Yes, copy the whole thing 30 times. Dad, don't disobey. Because he liked ancient literature, he hoped that his son could also like ancient literature. He taught him how to write with a brush, and taught him how to leave blank and how thick the ink should be. He hoped that his son would be well-versed in both literature and martial arts. He hoped that his son would become a dragon among men. He hoped that his son would be the most outstanding son in the world. Therefore, when his son made a mistake, or when his son wrote a wrong poem or sentence, he punished his son very severely. Fang Yan, I want to discuss something with you. Dad, you say, your grandfather and the Yi family have discussed it, and they want you to compete with the girl from the Yi family. Dad, why should I compete with the woman from the Yi family? She doesn't like me, and I don't like her. She's cold and always has a straight face, as if everyone owes her $200. It's an exchange competition to deepen the relationship between the 2 families. Friendship comes first, competition comes second. You just need to go on stage and do a perfunctory job, don't think too much. Okay then. I'll just have a casual competition with her. Fang Yan, I want to discuss something with you. Dad, you say, your grandfather and the Yi family have discussed it, and they want you to compete with the girl from the Yi family again. Compete again? Didn't we just compete last year? No, I won't compete with her. She hit my eyes until they were swollen, and I didn't have the face to go out for more than a month. It's because you lost last year's competition, and your grandfather isn't convinced, so he wants you to compete with her again. Your grandfather is old, and his health isn't good. Why don't we just accommodate him? It hasn't been easy for the old man to live his life. Isn't he just fighting for his pride now? Dad, I'm afraid I can't beat her. That woman is too powerful. Her Yi family's fist is already at the 3rd rank. That won't happen. You are our Fang family's most talented Taiji successor. Even underestimate says that you are a martial arts genius. Your grandfather has pinned all his hopes on you, and I also believe that you can do it. What if I lose again? Impossible. What? Fang Yan is sick? Shu, lower your voice. Our son has just fallen asleep. Just now his fever reached 39. 6. Tell me, what kind of lousy training method are you thinking of? What kind of method is not good? But you want him to take off his clothes and run along the shore of Shihizi and use the snow to wipe his body. How low is the temperature today? How can the child not get sick on such a cold day? That's because his physique is too weak. If his physique is strong enough, would this bit of cold wind be enough to make him catch a cold? That won't do. Our Fang family doesn't have such a weak bone. When he recovers, we have to double the difficulty of the training. Don't you dare. The child is already so sick, and you're still thinking of how to torture him. I don't agree, and I won't allow you to train the child in such a way. You're just being unreasonable, do you know that? A loving mother will spoil her son. Fang Yixing slammed the door and left. When Fang Yan was half asleep, a gentle and honest man's voice came over. Fang Yixing held a bowl of black Chinese medicine and squatted beside Fang Yan's bed. He lowered his voice and said softly, Fang Yan, I made a bowl of medicinal soup for you. Come, drink the soup. You'll be better after you drink it. The medicine is bitter. It's not bitter. I specially added a piece of rock candy for you. Fang Yan, the weather is cold. Your mother told you to take care of your body. Fang Yan, have you been busy with your studies recently? Your mother told you to come back when you have time. She's been talking about you recently. Fang Yan, your mother said, This was a tough and gentle man. This was a man who was stubborn and tolerant with no bottom line. This was a man with great literary talent but was not good at expressing himself verbally. This was an excellent husband, a great father. Dad, Fang Yan hugged Fang Yixing's stiff body that was wrapped in ice and snow, shouting hoarsely. Tears gushed out like a fountain. Chapter 440. When the news of Fang Yixing's death reached Swallow Dock, everyone was shocked. Fang Yan carried Fang Yixing's body back to the village. One by one, the red doors were pushed open in the wind and snow. He was a real man. A stocky middle-aged man sighed. What a pity. They all say that Yixing doesn't look like a man from Swallow Dock. Isn't he like a man from Swallow Dock? He is a man from Swallow Dock. What he's done isn't something that every young master in Swallow Fort can do. An elderly woman praised. The old man had to die before the young man. That old dog Fang Hui is really pitiful. The white-haired old man with his hands in his sleeves shook his head and sighed. It's a pity that he didn't die on the battlefield. Otherwise, we can carve his name on the stone tablet at the village entrance. A young man said. Regardless of how the villagers of Swallow Dock felt about Fang Yixing's death, wherever Fang Yan passed by, huge soul-summoning white banners would be raised in the courtyards one after another. On the biggest tree in front of or behind each house, a long white cloth with a spirit-summoning talisman was raised. There was a line of words on the white cloth. The Eastern Pole Immortal Tai ordered the Golden Boy and Jade Girl to lead my father and mother to the world of immortals. The white cloth was unfolded in the wind and fluttered in the cold wind. In the end, the whole village was hung with the spirit-summoning flags. This phenomenon had just occurred not long ago. The sword god from East Ocean, Chiba Bin, died in battle. The villagers of Swallow Dock felt his loyalty and spontaneously hung white flags to summon his soul. This was a great honor for the villagers of Swallow Dock. Fang Yan's expression was stiff. His hands were no longer his hands, and his feet were no longer his feet. His face wasn't his face, and his heart wasn't his heart. Every step he took was like a machine without any emotion. Behind him, white banners rose up one after another. In front of him, there were many Fang family members lined up to welcome him. At the front of the line was Fang Hui. His hands tightly grasped the handle of the wheelchair. Because he used too much force, several pieces of the old paint were rubbed off. He didn't dare to look at his son's body in Fang Yan's arms. His eyes were red, and there were turbid tears in his eyes. He shouted in a hoarse and heroic voice, "A good man dies on the battlefield. He doesn't retreat or hide. He dies a heroic death. Raise the flag." First Aunt Fang Yixin and second Aunt Fang Yiling were crying uncontrollably. Lu Wan had already fainted from crying when she heard the news. Now he collapsed on the bed, unable to stand up. First Uncle Fang Hao, second Uncle Zhao Qingxin and a group of men ran over and took Fang Yixing's body from Fang Yan's hands. Then, he ran towards the coffin that had been set up in the inner room. According to the rules of Swallow Dock, the deceased had to be revered by their loved ones for 3 days before being buried. Fang Yan seemed to have lost his soul. There were no tears, no sorrow, and he couldn't even speak a complete sentence. He passed by his grandfather Fang Hui, the weeping women, and his mother's room. Then, he came to the mourning hall and knelt in front of the coffin. Some people burned incense, some people set off firecrackers, and some people burned paper money. Some people cried, some people howled, and some people mourned. Some people knelt beside Fang Yan, some people comforted Fang Yan to drink water and eat, and some people told Fang Yan to restrain his grief. Fang Yan had long lost his self-awareness. His divine sense had entered another world. He automatically rejected and abandoned everything in this world. In the world he was in, there were only him, Lu Wan, and Fang Yixing and his family of 3. There were scenes of him cheering when Fang Yixing bought him his first bicycle. There were scenes of Fang Yixing correcting his mistakes in the Tang and Song poems. There were also scenes of Fang Yixing angrily whipping Fang Yan because he was lazy in practicing martial arts. He was erudite and had a good memory. His calligraphy and painting were first class. The famous calligraphy and painting master, Mr. Chen Daoming, once said that he was qualified to be a professor at Shuimu University and Yenjing University. However, he was never good at expressing his feelings. He only scolded and scolded his son. Every time he showed concern, he had to use, "Your mother said so." He was polite to his wife. He didn't have a diamond ring or rose, and he never said, "I love you." However, he loved and protected them with all his heart, with all that he had and all that he could do. Every farewell hug had to be stronger, because this might be a farewell forever. Every wish had to be fulfilled as soon as possible, because there might be no future. Yi Daoling returned. He took half a day out of his busy work and brought his daughter, Yi Zi, to pay respects to Fang Yixing. After he offered incense in front of Fang Yixing's memorial tablet, he looked at Fang Yan, who was kneeling on the ground. He sighed softly and took his daughter's hand to leave. Yi Daoxian came, and he brought his son, Yi Fengxing. Yi Daoxian offered incense. Yi Fengxing knelt in front of the memorial tablet and kowtowed 3 times. His head was bleeding, and he cried even more miserably than Fang Yan. Yi Daowen also came, and he came with his wife. Yi Daowen offered incense in front of the memorial tablet, while his wife went to the inner room to comfort Lu Wan, who had been lying on the bed for 2 days. The old lady of the Li family came, and the old man of the Zhang family came. The old lady of the Ruan family came. The teacher came. The teacher went to visit the old man Fang Hui and then left. Yi Rou came. Yi Rou came and knelt. She knelt beside Fang Yan without saying a word. Her face was cold. Summer came. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin also came after receiving the news. Qin Etian also came. Qin Etian knelt on the other side of Fang Yan. He didn't say a word to him, nor did he smile. The people she brought were busy helping with Fang Yixing's funeral, as if they were treating their own family. Bai Xiu also came. Bai Xiu offered 3 incense sticks in front of Fang Yixing's memorial tablet, and then stood in front of Fang Yan. He looked at Fang Yan and asked, "Are you very sad?" Fang Yan didn't respond. He couldn't hear what the others were saying, and he didn't want to hear what they were saying. The person he wanted to listen to the most was now lying in that narrow wooden box. What did it matter to him what the others said? "When I went there, he was already dead," Bai Xiu said in a flat voice. But he couldn't swallow his last breath, and he didn't want to use his last strength. He just wanted to stab him. He just wanted to stab him. You didn't see the satisfied expression on his face. He always wanted to do something for his son, and that was his only wish. He did it, so he left with peace of mind. He had a lot of things he didn't want to do, but he didn't have the slightest regret. He wanted to be a good father, and he was indeed a good father. Bai Xiu glanced at Yi Rou and Qin Etian, who were kneeling on both sides of Fang Yan, and then turned around and walked toward the inner room of the Fang family. Lu Wan's room was crowded with people. Fang Yan's 3 aunts and some women who were close to Swallow Dock all gathered there, talking about family trivia and comforting Lu Wan, so that she would not go to extremes. Bai Xiu stood at the door of the room and knocked on the door, but he didn't enter the room. Lu Wan hadn't eaten or drunk for 2 days in a row, and she was extremely haggard. Her cheeks were thin, and her eyes were deep. Seeing Bai Xiu appear in front of her, Lu Wan immediately jumped up from the bed. She ran to Bai Xiu, grabbed his arm, and asked anxiously, "Bai Xiu, when Yixing left, you were the only one who was with him. Tell me, did he suffer? Did he have any regrets when he left? Did he ask you to bring any message?" Not only Lu Wan was concerned about this question, but the 3 sisters of the Fang family and other women also gathered around. They wanted to know the last situation of Fang Yixing, and they hoped that he didn't have any pain or regret when he left. Since he couldn't live well, then they hoped that he could leave peacefully. Bai Xiu's expression was calm, and his voice was gentle. He said gently and elegantly, "Aunt Lu, Uncle Fang left peacefully, and he didn't leave any regrets. He said that he trusted Fang Yan very much, and he was proud to have such a son." Lu Wan's eyes became moist and big drops of tears rolled down her cheeks. She said in a sad voice, "Yixing never said it, but I know he has always been proud of his son. He always wanted to call his son, but he didn't know what to say to him. Every time he dialed the number, he would ask me to pick it up. He would secretly listen to the conversation, as if he was talking to his son on the phone. Since he had promised something, he must do it. Therefore, even though he thought it was cruel, Bai Xiu still told Lu Wan truthfully, "Uncle Fang asked me to bring you a message." "What message? What message did he ask you to bring?" he said. Bai Xiu's expression was respectful, and his voice was serious. He regretted that he couldn't say this to you face to face, and he said that he couldn't say it in front of you. He was afraid that if he didn't say it at that time, he wouldn't have another chance. Bai Xiu looked at Lu Wan and said softly, "He said he loved you." Wah! Lu Wan burst into tears, and she cried until she fainted. After the coffin was stopped for 3 days, Fang Yixing would be buried. Fang Yan wore mourning clothes and walked at the front of the farewell procession with a mourning stick in his hand. Fang Yingying, Fang Haohan, Yi Fengxing, Li Xiaotian, and a group of friends who hadn't left Swallow Dock followed closely behind, carrying the banner. According to the tradition, girls like Yi Ro and Qin Yitian only needed to wear a short mourning ceremony. But the two insisted on wearing the same mourning ceremony as Fang Yan, which made the old man in charge of the funeral in the village feel awkward for a long time. He discussed it with the old man Fang Hui for a long time before he agreed. When Fang Yan dropped the first handful of dust, the men who had been waiting at the side shoveled the soil into the grave. Wang Dong's grave was dug behind Fang Yixing, and the two brothers were together in life and death. Soon, the deep pit was filled, and the coffin was covered. From then on, they were separated by life and death. The old man in the village sprinkled the spiritual water with a willow branch, and shouted in a long sad tone, "Homeward bound, homeward bound, homeward bound." Chapter 441. Rosefinch Secondary. The best private secondary school in Huaqing. There was no other. The 10th of September was a joyous day for the new students. One by one, the lucky students who received the admission notice from Rosefinch Secondary arrived at the school gate accompanied by their parents and family members. They looked at the bright golden words Rosefinch Secondary hanging above the school gate with admiration and joy. After years of hard work, they finally entered the famous school that they dreamed of. Their hearts ached, but they wouldn't cry tears of joy again, because they had already done this before. Even the parents of the students couldn't help but stop their hurried footsteps and stand beside their son or daughter. They couldn't help but sigh proudly. It's not easy to enter Rosefinch High School. All the students knew that being able to enter Rosefinch High School was equivalent to having one foot in the door of a university. As for the other foot, it was just a matter of deciding which famous school to enter. Rosefinch Secondary had the most powerful teachers, the most advanced facilities, and the most open and free learning atmosphere. Here, no teachers would force you to learn anything. They would only guide you to take the initiative to be interested in a certain field. You could write poems or draw. You could practice calligraphy. You could be proficient in a foreign language. You could study history or chess. You could do whatever you wanted to do and unleash your passion for learning. Because you would find that when you do the things you like, you would need a lot of knowledge and preparation. The deeper your love, the more thorough your research, the more you would feel weak and insignificant. You would be like a hungry monster that opened its huge mouth, hoping to swallow all the knowledge into its stomach. The new principal of Rosefinch High School once said this in the media: "Every student is a treasure house, and the teacher is the key to this treasure house." If the teacher treated himself as a treasure house and the students as a warehouse to transfer their wealth, then the wealth in the warehouse would become less and less. In the end, the warehouse would become unsightly and pitiful. Senior brothers and sisters in white shirts, blue uniforms, and black ties were busily making their way through the crowd, attentively guiding the new juniors to go through various procedures and introducing some related facilities and club information of the school. Our school has a literature club. The famous writer Lu Xiafan is the honorary president of our literature club. The current president is the youth best-selling author Luo Yi. The standard of our school's Go Club is quite high. This year, we represented Huaqing in the International Youth Go Tournament in Japan and won the first prize for both the individual and the team. Oh, this is already the second year that we've won a Grand Slam. The tea ceremony club was established by Senior Qin Etienne. Do you know Senior Qin Etienne? Back then, he was a legendary figure in our flower city. What? You guys know Senior Sister Etienne? Anyway, if you like the tea ceremony, you can go and sign up. Let's not talk about other things. The beauties in the tea ceremony society are the most elegant. A man in a black robe stood at the gate of Rosefinch Secondary. He looked at the ancient gate of Rosefinch Secondary in silence. His eyes were clear and pure. It was easy for people to have a good impression of him. But when you looked into his eyes, you would find that the pool was deep and boundless. If you were not careful, you would fall into it and be unable to get out. His chin was clean-shaven. There was only a light green stubble left. His body stood perfectly straight, like a spear that would never bend, like a pine tree that could support the heavens and the earth. This was a very contradictory personality. He had the demeanor of a young man, but he also had the experience of an adult. These two characteristics fused together to form his unique charm. "Hey," a clear voice called out from behind him. The man in the robe turned around and saw a beautiful girl talking to him. The girl was wearing a set of white sportswear, a pair of white canvas shoes, and a red cap on her head. Her face was rosy, and there were fine beads of sweat on her forehead. She exuded a youthful aura. There was a Hello Kitty suitcase beside her feet. She should be one of the new students who came to Rosefinch Secondary today. "Are you talking to me?" The man in the robe looked around and doubtfully asked. "If I'm not talking to you, who else could it be?" The girl giggled. "There's no one else in front of me. Are you talking to a ghost?" "What's the matter?" The man in the robe silently laughed and asked. "You're so strange," the girl said. "I've been staring at you. You've been staring at the gate of this school. You've been standing here for a while now, not saying a word, not moving at all. What are you thinking about?" "I was also standing here 3 years ago," the man in the robe said. He was also standing here 3 years ago. At the time, he was in a good mood and felt refreshed. Being bullied by a violent woman was already a big deal. 3 years later, things are still the same, but people have changed. 3 years ago? Ah, you're also a student of Rosefinch Secondary? Then you're my senior. Senior, which university are you studying at right now? I heard that Rosefinch High's university entrance exam results have been quite good these past few years. There was even a class that was 100% accepted into a famous school, shocking the entire education world at the time. The man in the robe lightly shook his head and spoke with a nostalgic tone. "I'm not a student, not a student. I'm a teacher at Rosefinch High," the man in the robe said. "Ah," the girl opened her eyes wide and said, "No way. You're a teacher? How come I can't tell at all?" The girl was thinking that it would be lucky to have such a handsome teacher at school. The man in the robe chuckled and said nothing. "I'm Suki." "Then you, what's your name?" The man didn't answer her question and said, "Goodbye." Saying so, the man walked towards the gate of Rosefinch Secondary. "How annoying," the girl stomped her foot in annoyance and said, "You still haven't told me your name." The old man in the robe didn't hear her complaint because his figure was already far away. In front of the school's security booth, a man in a green security uniform was lecturing a few punks with blonde hair with a serious expression and said, "You brats want to break into the school again. Don't blame me for not telling you. What is this place? It's a place for students to learn, a place to train talents for the country. You don't study properly, you don't find a good job outside. Instead you want to run into the school all day to harm the girls inside. How can you do that?" "Pump?" A blonde with a row of shiny earrings on his right ear sneered and said, "I say, Baldy, do you know how to talk? I'm here to visit my girlfriend. How am I a harm? We're in love with each other. Do you know what in love with each other is? You don't, right? Look at you, a coward with weeds growing on his head. Probably no girl will like you in this lifetime. You call that in love with each other?" You pursued Li Jingjing, a second-year student, and she was so scared that she avoided you. Because you guarded the school gate all day, Li Jingjing didn't dare to go home for several days. I say, you guys should do some good and let the girls study in peace and not worry about you punks all day, or else, I'll send you to the police station. The punks looked at each other and then laughed. "Brother Xing, he said he'll send us to the police station. I'm so scared." Police station? What is that place? Have we been there? Is there a buffet inside? Brother Xing likes to visit the police station when he has nothing to do. We're familiar with that place. Baldy, do you want me to take you in for a tour? The man with the earring pointed at Baldy with an arrogant expression and said, I say, Baldy, don't blame me, Brother Xiaoxing, for not giving you face. Since you've said it, then send me to the police station. If I beg you for mercy, you'll be my biological father. Baldy was so angry that his face turned red, and his body trembled. He pulled out the baton at his waist and said angrily, I'm telling you, as long as I, Baldy, guard the school gate, you hooligans won't be able to step into the school gate. I can't go in even if you guard the school gate, but you can't do anything outside the school, right? Is it illegal for me to pursue a girl outside the school? I don't care if it's inside or outside the school, I won't allow you to bully the students of our school, or else, I'll call the police and arrest all of you. Who do you think you are? You're just the school security captain, not Huaqing's police chief. Damn Baldy, you can't control me. Before the earring man's voice died away, his body had already left the ground. He wanted to speak, but he found that the back of his neck was being strangled. He couldn't struggle, couldn't speak, and even had difficulty breathing. His lackeys saw that their big brother was being humiliated and immediately rushed toward their target. Bang! The first hooligan who rushed up was kicked away. He was flying freely in the air, and it seemed that he wouldn't land for a while. Crack! The second hooligan who rushed up was punched in the nose, and the sound of his nose breaking was sharp and ear-piercing. Put! The third hooligan who rushed halfway wanted to turn around and run away, but his butt was kicked. His body rolled on the ground, and then he fell to the ground in an extremely embarrassing manner. The other hooligans were silent, and their faces were full of fear. They stood still and didn't dare to move. The man in the robe pulled out the little black tie from the earring man's neck and skillfully tied his hands and feet with the bundling technique, making him look like a dumpling. Then he carried the big dumpling and hung it on the old locust tree at the entrance of the conservative pavilion and said, Hang it here, is the tree okay? He was afraid that the old locust tree couldn't bear the weight of the earring man's body, and the trunk would be crushed. Baldy's eyes were red, and he rushed up to pull the arm of the man in the robe, and said in a choked voice, Fang Yen, you're finally back. Chapter 442. The guy you hung on the tree is called Li Xiaoxing. He's a famous gangster in this area. He's always around the school. Recently, he's been pursuing a girl called Li Jingjing. That girl is very afraid of him. She's too scared to go out. Baldy didn't know where he learned this bad habit of grabbing someone's sleeve and not letting go. It was as if he was afraid that Fang Yen would disappear again if he let go. With me, Baldy, there's no way he can enter our school. But it's not good for them to keep guarding outside the school. I can take care of the school, but who can take care of the things outside the school? Call the police. It's useless. That guy is a habitual offender. He's been in and out of the police station several times. He didn't do anything serious. The police can't do anything to him. A red light flashed in Fang Yan's eyes, but he didn't respond to Baldy's question. Principal's office. Zhong Dei placed a cup of hot tea in front of Fang Yan. He then sat on the sofa opposite him and looked at him seriously. After a long silence, he said with a sigh, Fang Yan, it's been 3 years. We've been waiting for you for 3 years. You're finally back. Fang Yixing died in battle. Fang Yan stayed in Swallow Dock to mourn for 3 years. 3 years had changed too many people, and too many things had happened. The old principal of Rosefinch Secondary, Zhang Xiaofeng, retired. Before he retired, he invited the former principal of Ivy League School, Zhong Dei, to be the new principal of Rosefinch according to the agreement he made with Fang Yan. Zhong Dei was indeed a famous madman principal in Huaqing's education circle. After he came to Rosefinch, he carried out bold and decisive reforms. The good ones were promoted and the bad ones were cut down. He handed in a beautiful answer sheet in the shortest time possible. The teachers and students of Rosefinch, who were originally dissatisfied or hostile towards him, looked at him in a new light. Rosefinch High School's performance over the past 3 years had been outstanding in Huaqing's education circle. Regardless of whether it was its results or its reputation, it had become the private high school of choice for Huaqing students. There were even many parents who traveled a great distance to ask for their children's education. In the past, I never had the chance to talk to him properly, so I spent 3 years by his side. Fang Yan's voice was calm and gentle, and there was no emotion on his face. However, there was still a trace of sorrow in his eyes that was difficult to dissolve. I talked a great deal to him, and heard him talk a great deal to me. I felt I understood him better. She wanted to know what kind of person he was. Isn't it too slow and cruel for you to only understand what kind of person the most important person in your life is? Zhong Dei sighed softly and said, regarding your father's matter, I also feel very sorry in my heart. Filial piety is the way of human relationships. I can't blame you for doing something wrong. But you have to know that there are many students waiting for you here. They waited for you for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. They waited for you for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. They asked the school countless times, why didn't Mr. Fang come back? Why didn't Mr. Fang come back? They couldn't get through to your phone, and they didn't have your contact information, so they could only ask the school again and again. They waited from the first year to the second year, and from the second year to the third year. In the end, they didn't manage to wait for you. This year, they all took the exam, except for Qin Etian who didn't participate in the exam. The entire class of 40 students were all admitted to famous universities in various fields. They became the college entrance examination legends of our Huaqing's education circle, or rather, the entire Huaxia's education circle. Zhong Dei revealed an excited expression and said, to us educators, this is such a good group of students. Unfortunately, your teacher-student relationship is still too short. If you could take care of them for 3 years and personally send them to the examination hall, what kind of ability would they display? What kind of people would they become? How many writers would there be? How many philosophers would there be? How many mathematicians or calligraphers would there be? Fang Yan chuckled and said, when I wasn't there, they still did very well in the exam. The master leads the way, but cultivation is up to the individual. I told them how to study, and I drew out their passion for knowledge. They could still do very well without me. When you weren't there, they were all suppressing a certain energy in their hearts. Zhong Dei shook his head and said, I've seen your file. You didn't stay in Rosefinch for a long time, but you are indeed a very talented teacher. Your scenario simulation method is very effective, and now I've already promoted it to the whole school in Rosefinch. Other schools also come to us to secretly learn from you. I'm very happy that you can come back. What are your plans? Today is the day for new students to enter the school, and another batch of students entered Rosefinch to further their studies. I'll give you a class? Fang Yan rejected and said, I don't want to be a teacher anymore. You don't want to be a teacher anymore? Then what do you want to do? Zhong Dei looked at Fang Yan with a puzzled expression and said, Fang Yan, I, Zhong Dei, rarely admire people, but I have to admit that you do have a lot of ideas in teaching and educating people. I'm far inferior to you in this aspect. Be a teacher and train a few more outstanding students for our Rosefinch, okay? I'll be a security guard, Fang Yan said. Fang Yan walked out of the headmaster's office. Baldy, who sent him here, was still guarding the entrance of the administrative building. Seeing Fang Yan come out, Baldy hurriedly greeted him and reached out to hold Fang Yan's arm, but Fang Yan avoided it without leaving a trace. Baldy looked at Fang Yan, grinned and laughed, and said, Have you talked to Headmaster Zhong? Which class are you going to teach? But if I were Headmaster Zhong, I would definitely arrange a few more classes for you. You don't know, the class you taught before, 100% of the students were admitted to a famous school. If you stayed in the school, you would have been promoted for 3 years, and the bonus from that year would have been, oh, this school is yours. How can you reward yourself? I won't teach classes, Fang Yan said. You won't teach classes? You won't be a teacher? Baldy looked at Fang Yan in horror. Fang Yan, are you here to say goodbye to everyone? The last time you went back for the Spring Festival, you didn't come back for 3 years. If I let you go this time, I'm afraid you'll never come back to see us again, right? I'll be a security guard, Fang Yan said. He looked at Baldy's anxious face and felt a warm feeling in his heart. These friends really cared about him and hoped that he could stay in Rosefinch to teach. If it wasn't necessary, who would be willing to say goodbye so easily? From today onwards, I'll be one of your soldiers. Baldy also showed an expression of disbelief. His eyes were as big as Headmaster Zhang Dai's, but the difference was that Headmaster Zhang Dai was so angry that he smashed his cup. That was his favorite handmade cloisonné cup, and he usually treasured it very much. Fang Yan stood next to the bus stop at the school gate. He didn't have to wait too long before a black Mercedes-Benz slowly drove over. Fang Yan opened the door and got in. A familiar fragrance wafted into his nose. Lu Chaoga, who was wearing a silver suit, reached out and grabbed Fang Yan's hand. She didn't say anything and just looked at him with a joyful expression. The car stopped in front of a small courtyard in the villa area. The door was opened by a man in black from the outside. Lu Chaoga took Fang Yan's hand and got out of the car. She bent down to help Fang Yan take his slippers. After Fang Yan changed his shoes, she pulled Fang Yan to sit on the sofa in the living room. She put a cup of fragrant top-notch silver needles in front of Fang Yan and turned on the TV to the documentary channel. Then she quickly went upstairs while giggling. When Lu Chaoga came downstairs again, the exquisite suit on her body had disappeared. Of course, she changed into a set of white casual sportswear. She took tomatoes, cabbage, meat, and fresh fish from the freezer and began to busy herself in the kitchen. She made a tomato scrambled egg, a sour and spicy cabbage, a celery shredded pork, and a milky white fish soup with a few green onions floating on it. Lu Chaoga took Fang Yan to wash his hands and then put a bowl of fragrant rice in front of him. "Do you want to drink?" Lu Chaoga asked. "No." Fang Yan said. "Then let's eat." Lu Chaoga said. Fang Yan nodded, picked up the bowl and began to eat. Lu Chaoga kept helping Fang Yan to eat and said aloud, "Since our first product went on the market 2 years ago, the technology of the Rubik's Cube has been constantly developed and widely used in various fields. We borrowed the channels of the Lu and Lan families to quickly cover the market with our products. All the logos with flames are our products." The logo of Chaoyan Technology was 2 burning flames above and below, and all the products of Chaoyan Technology were stamped with the logo of a flame. Using a sentence used by Finance Magazine when reporting on Chaoyan Technology, it was, "This fire lit up the whole world and created a company and a woman." The development of Chaoyan Technology is very rapid. We have set up branches in Yanjing, Mingzhu, Pengcheng, and Xiangtan. We have bought a new office building in Huaqing, but I still work in the same old place because the core research institute of Chaoyan is still there. Our market share is getting higher and higher, and the variety of products we produce is increasing. We have applied for nearly 100 related product patents, and there are countless products in our Chaoyan Underground Research Institute that are being tested or about to be launched on the market. Our products are not only for civilian use, but also for military products in cooperation with the military. Of course, this matter is still confidential. Some foreign companies want to cooperate with us, and some consortia want to buy our company's shares or want to cooperate with us. I refuse. We are not short of money now. We have a lot of money now. Every day when I go to the office to see the new financial statements, I find that the money in the company's account has increased again. Sometimes I don't have time to carefully check how many digits there are. Why? Fang Yan interrupted her and asked. What? Lu Chaoga held the chopsticks and looked at Fang Yan. When you were very young, your parents were no longer around. You were alone, living in the enemy's home, and your only relative was your aunt. She didn't spend too much time with you. You have it harder than me, so why do you sympathize with me? Lu Chaoga pondered for a long time and said softly, "Because I have long been used to those things. I'm afraid you won't be used to it." Chapter 443. She was used to the death of her parents. She was used to being helpless. She was used to being wronged. She was used to all kinds of misfortunes and disasters. However, she was worried that Fang Yan would not be used to it. When a person's fate was full of misfortunes and tribulations, when a person suffered too much pain and lost too much, her heart would become hard, and her body would become strong. She would shelter him from the wind and rain, and she would welcome the morning glow and bathe in the starlight for him. Just like the flowers on the cliff, they were more aloof and independent than the wildflowers and weeds at the foot of the mountain. Lu Chaoge was the flower on the cliff, and the former Fang Yan was the flower in the greenhouse. When the flower on the cliff saw the flower in the greenhouse, there would always be some worry, and also some pity. The wind was so strong outside, and the snow was so fierce. Could his thin and weak body withstand it? Lu Chaoge knew that Fang Yan was suffering unimaginable sorrow, just like what she had suffered when she was a child. However, she gritted her teeth and stubbornly endured it. It was a kind of tearing pain, as if she was awake to remove an organ from her body. Father, which organ of the body should he correspond to? I'm worried that you won't be used to it. Hearing Lu Chaoge's answer, Fang Yan was stunned for a moment. He looked at Lu Chaoge's pretty face, which was full of concern, and said softly, "The place where I was born, there is a very bad habit. The men there all like to say heroic words like valuing friendship over life and death. For public and private reasons, they don't hesitate to pay with their lives. So, every year there will be people leaving. Some people die in the strange and dangerous North Sea, and even their bones can't be retrieved. Some people die in the hot and boundless Gobi, and their bodies are submerged in quicksand, staying there forever. Some people die in battle, some people die of illness, and some people die in pursuit of martial arts. Sometimes they receive the news of the death of distant relatives on the morning of spring, sometimes they receive the phone call in the summer night, sometimes it's the double ninth festival, and sometimes it's the eve of the new year. You can choose the day of birth, but who can choose the day of death?" Fang Yan held the rice bowl and filled a bowl of fresh fish soup for himself, and then sipped it. "I thought I had seen through this kind of thing very easily. There are even times when I'm hot-headed and think that I can do what others can." Fang Yan laughed self-deprecatingly and said, "So I can't do it. I'm not brave, I'm a little cowardly." "You're not a coward." Lu Chaoge comforted him softly. "You're just too emotional." Fang Yan shook his head and said, "When I was alive, I didn't even have a good talk with him or drink with him once. What's the point of waiting for him after he's dead?" This kind of expression can't be called emotional, right? I'm just too guilty. When he was alive, I didn't take a good look at his paintings or appreciate his words. I knew he was busy with his art exhibition, but I didn't even go over to ask if it was going well or if he needed any help. He lived in his world and I lived in mine. Although we were a family, I always felt that he didn't understand me, and I didn't understand him. So, this time, I stayed in Swallow Dock for 3 years. I looked through all of his previous paintings, and I didn't even miss the manuscripts under the bookshelves. I went through every word and poem he had written, even the mistakes he had made. Some of the words were very good, which proved that he was in a good mood at that time. Some of the words were very bad. At that time, he was probably very annoyed, right? Later, I discovered a secret. When he wrote beautiful words, there would be something that made him happy that day. For example, I received the title of Outstanding Graduate from school, or my martial arts improved to his satisfaction. On the day I felt the heart of Tai Chi for the first time, he drew a painting called A Young Man's Morning Practice. A young man was diligently practicing martial arts in the morning light. The sun in the painting was dyed red by him, which proved that he must have been very excited at that time. Fang Yan couldn't continue and lowered his head to drink the soup. As the warm and delicious fish soup entered his stomach, Fang Yan's depressed mood slightly relaxed. "It's not that I'm not used to it, I just don't want to." Fang Yan smiled and said, "I just don't want to. That's all." Lu Chaoge looked at Fang Yan, her beautiful eyes filled with deep worry. She said, "Fang Yan, why did you come to Flower City?" "There are too many things to do, I can't keep waiting." Fang Yan replied, "Besides, my previous students, they are also waiting for me." "Fang Yan, don't you think this is too risky?" Lu Chaoge didn't believe Fang Yan's explanation. She said, "I know you. I know what kind of man you are. You waited in Swallow Dock for 3 years, and you waited for 3 years. You thought that those people would appear again, you thought that they would attack you again, but they didn't appear, as if they had disappeared from this world. So, you left Swallow Dock, left Yanjing and came to Flower City, the most dangerous place where your strength is the weakest? You want to use your life to lure the snake out of its hole? Fang Yan, this is too dangerous. Go back to Swallow Dock. That is the safest place. They're capable of anything. Fang Yan's eyes were filled with a terrifying red light, and the white of his eyes were mottled with red veins. He looked at Lu Chaoga and said calmly, "But conflicts have to be resolved. They killed my father, so let me kill their entire family. You see, this isn't too much to ask, right?" Fang Yan saw Lu Chaoga's surprised expression and asked, "Are you not used to it? I didn't speak like this before. If I encountered such a problem, I would use another way to say it. I would tell you that I'm a pacifist, and then secretly kill their entire family. This is my style, isn't it?" Lu Chaoga nodded and said, "Indeed, that is your style. I hope that you are still the same as before. Back then, although you had a vicious mouth, your heart was very kind. You were willing to think for others." "No, I can't do it." Fang Yan patted his chest and said, "Every night, it feels like I'm being burned by fire, tormenting me to the point that I can't sleep. Only when this fire is extinguished, can I return to my previous self. Then we'll take it slow. Don't be in a hurry," Lu Chaoga said. "What are you going to do in Rosefinch? Are you still going to be a teacher?" "No." Fang Yan said, "My current state of mind is not suitable to be a teacher. I'm afraid that I won't be able to control my emotions. Being a teacher is something you're good at. If you don't want to be a teacher, what do you want to be?" "Security." Lu Chaoga almost spat out the fish soup in her mouth. "Security?" Lu Chaoga almost spat out the fish soup in her mouth. If it weren't for the fact that she had to maintain her elegant demeanor, it would have been very difficult for her to control herself. A rising star in the education world of Huaqing only wanted to be a security guard at a school. Isn't this contrast a bit too strong? "I used to like to educate people, but now, I only want to protect people." Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoga and said with an unprecedentedly serious tone. "Later on, I realized that being alive is the most important thing. I hope that the people I care about won't come to any harm. Doing this is too tiring." "It's tiring if I don't do this," Fang Yan said. "I didn't do this before, that's why I'm so tired now." Lu Chaoga sighed softly and said, "What can I help you with?" "Help me be Chaoyan," Fang Yan said. "I'll need money in the future, a lot of money. I need resources, all kinds of resources. I don't just want a person to be strong, I need a family to be strong. Only then will I be able to confront those schemers hiding behind the scenes. Only then will I be able to chop off their dirty hands and pierce their dirty hearts." Lu Chaoga nodded and said, "You were mourning in Swallow Dock for 3 years, and I didn't visit you for 3 years. I spent all my time and energy on the development of Chaoyan technology. I knew that this day would come, and I hope that when you come out, Chaoyan technology can be your strongest support. I think that Miss Qin also thinks so." After Fang Yixing's funeral, Qin Yitian immediately left. She became her mother's assistant and one of the decision-makers of the Qin family's business. Her eyes were always on Chaoyan technology, and she used the Qin family's resources and connections to protect Chaoyan's development. If it weren't for Qin Yitian's support, if it weren't for the Qin family's support, Chaoyan technology, which was as fragile as a baby and had infinite potential, would have long been torn into pieces and swallowed by those ambitious people. It could be said that if it weren't for Lu Chaoga standing in the light to attract the gunfire, if it weren't for Qin Yitian standing in the back to cast thunder, the 2 small flames of Chaoyan technology would have long been extinguished by others. "I owe you too much," Fang Yan said in a deep voice. He didn't say thank you, because that word was too weak to express his feelings at this moment. Lu Chaoga smiled silently and began to clean up the dishes. She said, "Go watch TV for a while, and live here with me from now on." Fang Yan felt restless. He felt that he was in a bad mood right now, and it wasn't appropriate to think about the matters between a man and a woman. Moreover, he and Lu Chaoga still lacked some emotional seasoning. He felt that he wasn't ready yet. If they slept together, it wouldn't be appropriate, right? Fang Yan was in a dilemma. He didn't know what reason he should use to refuse Lu Chaoga's invitation without hurting a woman's proud self-esteem. Because he hadn't spoken much in the past 3 years, he felt that his language skills had deteriorated seriously. "I've already cleaned up the room for you." Lu Chaoge walked into the kitchen with the bowls and chopsticks. Only then did Fang Yan realize that he was thinking too much. Chapter 444. You couldn't blame Fang Yan for overthinking it. Didn't this kind of plot appear in many novels and movies? When his parents were killed or his brothers died tragically, the male protagonist was in so much pain that he wanted to drown his sorrows in alcohol, while the female protagonist stayed by his side. When the male protagonist was drunk or pretended to be drunk, the two of them would ignite their passion and do everything that they could. Their bodies would feel so comfortable that they felt like they were on cloud 9. The next day, the female protagonist was the first to wake up. She looked at the male protagonist who was sleeping soundly next to her with a pitiful face. Thinking about his hard work last night, she got up to make a hearty breakfast and left. The male protagonist was at a loss when he woke up. Soon, he saw the steaming breakfast on the table and the note written in a beautiful handwriting. "I did it voluntarily. I don't blame you. You are the longest. Fighting." Fang Yan thought that Lu Chaoge was also such a woman, which scared him. But then he thought that Lu Chaoge was not such a woman, which made him angry again. Did she still have the spirit of dedication? Did she still have the spirit of loyalty? Lu Chaoge was indeed prepared. She arranged Fang Yan's room on the second floor next to her bedroom. They were separated by a wall, but it was two different worlds. Lu Chaoge took Fang Yan into the room and said, "You will live here in the future. It is safe and you can take care of each other. I know you like reading, so I put a bookshelf at the head of the bed. There are a few books that I chose for you. If you have any books that you want to read, you can also make a list for me. This is the washing area, and this is the shower area. The bathtub has a massage function. If you are tired, you can lie in it and rest for a while. The towel is in the cabinet and will be changed every day. You can throw it into the cage after you use it. Someone will come to wash it the next day." Lu Chaoge pushed open the wardrobe. It was full of clothes. "There are pajamas and formal attire for going out in here. I know you have the habit of doing morning exercises, so I specially prepared a few sets of training clothes for you. They are made of fine cotton and should be very comfortable. If there's a brand you like, you can tell me and I'll get someone to buy it for you." Lu Chaoge pulled Fang Yan out of the room's balcony and pointed to the open lawn in the backyard, saying, "You can practice there. There are high walls on 3 sides, so no one will disturb you." When he bought the house, he specially chose this house for safety reasons. Easy to defend and alert. Lu Chaoge had prepared everything he needed. Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoge and praised, "You're getting better at taking care of people." Lu Chaoge chuckled and said, "After living alone for a long time, one has to learn some special skills. Let me know if you need anything. You must be tired today. Have a good rest." Lu Chaoge said goodbye to Fang Yan, then turned around and walked outside. When she went out, she didn't forget to close the door for Fang Yan. Fang Yan looked at the layout of the room and stood on the balcony to observe the surroundings for a while. Then he closed the curtains, filled the bathtub with water, took off his clothes and lay down. He didn't use the massage function of the bathtub. He soaked his whole body in the warm water, including his head. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, half an hour passed, and his head didn't come out. He didn't even expose his mouth to breathe fresh air. Except for a few bubbles on the surface of the water, there was no movement in the bathtub. It should be known that the human body couldn't breathe in water. Without fresh oxygen, it was difficult for the human body to live in water for a long time. Fang Yan actually stayed in the water for half an hour, which was difficult even for the most powerful turtle breathing technique. Unless the person was already dead. Phew! Water splashed everywhere. Fang Yan suddenly sat up from the warm water. He raised his head to look at the time on the wall. This time, he stayed in the water for 36 minutes. Of course, Fang Yan didn't die. He entered the water in a stagnant state. He didn't need to breathe, and his lungs didn't need fresh oxygen. He used the Tai Chi heart to circulate his whole body, using the power of Tai Chi to maintain the operation of his body's organs, so that his body could fuse with the warm water. The bubbles that occasionally came out were the waste gas released by the Tai Chi heart, and he only needed the most primitive breath before he entered the bathtub to continue. It was like how a normal person needed a piece of bread for a meal. If they didn't eat for 7 days, they would starve to death. However, Fang Yen could only need 1/10 of a piece of bread for each meal. He could divide this piece of bread into 10 pieces to sustain his life. Using the same principle, he could hold the fresh air in his mouth and then divide it countless times, so that his body could maintain its vitality under the most extreme conditions. This was the existence of another ultimate state of the Tai Chi heart, fake death. Because Fang Yixing really died, he comprehended this fake death state during his 3 years of mourning. The Tai Chi heart was your sincerity. If your mood was happy, it would be happy too. Thy heart is sorrowful, and it is sorrowful. For a long time, Fang Yan's heart was like dead ashes. Lu Chaoge returned to her room and sat on the sofa in a daze for a while. Then, she opened the bathtub and began to fill it with water. She also poured a box of rose petals into the bathtub. She tied up her hair and wrapped it in a white shower cap. She took off her coat and removed the black bra that bound her chest. Then, 2 extremely plump snow-white jade rabbits jumped out. Lu Chaoge stood in front of the mirror. The 2 jade rabbits trembled and swayed in the mirror, as if they were unwilling to live on a woman's body for a long time and wanted to escape. She had a beautiful face and a pair of intelligent eyes. There was not a single blemish on her pink and white skin, not even a pimple that grew because of excessive heat. Her breasts were tall and straight, her waist was slender, and her round and slender thighs could instantly capture the eyes of any man. She used her hands to gently hold up the 2 fat rabbits. Only then did they lie down on her palms. Lu Chaoge looked at herself in the mirror and sighed softly. She reached out and tore off her purple lace underwear, then stepped into the bathtub with her long legs. She had just laid down in the bathtub and was about to enjoy the massage of the bathtub's lover's hands, when the smart phone hanging by the side of the bathtub suddenly rang. Lu Chaoge didn't get up. She only called out, "Chao Yen," and the phone was automatically connected. "Boss, Dr. Lin Jibin from GS Studio encountered an accident. His car crashed into the railing on the Long Valley Bridge. His car was destroyed and he died." Lu Chaoge was silent for a long time, then said, "I got it." After hanging up the phone, Lu Chaoge closed her eyes tiredly. Those people hadn't given up yet. This kind of thing often happened. If it weren't for the powerful human resources provided by the Qin family, as well as the famous school cooperation plan that Chao Yin carried out later, Chao Yin's underground research institute would probably have no researchers available now. What was the most important thing for a high-tech research company? Talent. There was no doubt that their opponent was very good at killing. White shirt and black shoes, handsome face and starry eyes. Holding a cup of tea, he had a natural and unworldly aura. Fang Yen sat quietly in the security booth and drank tea. Baldy felt uncomfortable standing next to him. Seeing that the 2 subordinates beside him kept signaling him with their eyes, Baldy had to stand up and speak. He looked at Fang Yen with a flattering smile and said, "Mr. Fang, let's discuss something. Why don't you take a walk around the campus? Go to the martial arts club to teach the students martial arts, go to the tea ceremony club to drink a cup of new tea made by the children, or you can go home and sleep for a while. There's nothing much here. Even if something happens, us brothers can help you. Is that okay?" Fang Yen looked up at Baldy and said, "You want to kick me out?" No. Baldy waved his hand repeatedly. The few hairs on his head were almost scared off. "How could we kick you out? We can't kick you out of anyone else. I'm just worried that you'll be tired." "I'm not tired," Fang Yen said. "Hee, as long as you're not tired. As long as you're not tired." Baldy giggled, but he was already crying in his heart. Who was Fang Yen? He was the man of Lu Chaoge, the director of Rosefinch Secondary School. With such a great god guarding the security booth, the colleagues in the security office all had difficulty breathing. In the past, when they were on duty, they talked and laughed, bragged, and smoked cigarettes. Their days were as carefree as Immortal's. With Fang Yen sitting like this, they didn't dare to talk, brag, smoke, and even laugh. It was only a bitter smile. As the new head of Rosefinch Secondary Security Office, Baldy had to think about his subordinates. If the subordinates' days were not happy, as the boss, he would also lose face, right? But why was it so hard to say this? Baldy waved his hand at his subordinates, who were observing the wind direction, indicating that he couldn't do it. He didn't have the ability or the courage to ask Fang Yen to leave. The old fox Zheng Chang patted Baldy and whispered in Baldy's ear, "You're our head, the highest official in our security office. Whether he's a prince or a prince, when he comes to our security office, he has to listen to you. Would he dare to not listen to what you tell him to do?" Baldy thought about it and agreed. He was the head of the security office. How could he let Fang Yen suppress his brilliant power? So, Baldy straightened his back and walked in front of Fang Yen with a serious expression, saying, "Fang Yen, go to the Sparrow River Tea House to rest." After thinking for a while, he added majestically, "This is an order." Baldy felt that he had to stand up. If a tiger doesn't show its might, do you think I'm Hello Kitty? Chapter 445. There was a tea house called the Sparrow River Tea House by the river near the Sparrow Bridge. Some teachers who liked this style liked to drink a cup of tea and look at the river view when they didn't have class. Students with good family backgrounds also liked to come here to lament the passing of time. Maybe they would be inspired and come up with a good poem or essay. Fang Yen was stunned for a moment. He put down the teacup in his hand and said, "There's no need to rest. I'll go to the back garden." Fang Yen walked out of the security booth and headed to the back garden of the school. That was the student dormitory area. Some naughty students would smoke, play cards, and even get into fights there. It had always been the focus of the security office. If boys or girls sneaked into the girls' dormitory, it would be an even bigger problem. This was something that the school would not allow. He really left? Baldy stared at Fang Yan's back. His face was full of shock and disbelief. He was just saying it. Why did Fang Yen really listen to him? Could it be that, as the leader, he was really a deterrent? He really left. Zheng Chang also found this behavior hard to understand. Why didn't he get angry? Baldy kicked Zheng Chang's butt and scolded, "Brat, are you waiting for him to get angry at me? If he yells at me, you guys won't have a good time either." He wouldn't dare. Zheng Chang patted his chest to show his loyalty. "If he dares to get angry at you, I'll be the first to fight him." Phew, this feels good. You guys don't know that I was about to go crazy from holding back. Exactly. My smoking addiction is acting up. I want to find a place to smoke, but I don't even dare to. You're still thinking about smoking? I don't even dare to speak. He's sitting there with a teacup like he's my grandfather. I have to report to him when I go to the toilet. I'm afraid he'll think I'm slacking off and going somewhere to sleep. Everyone complained to Baldy. Because Fang Yen was too imposing, it was really painful for them to be next to him. He took the initiative to patrol the back garden this year. What about tomorrow? What about the day after tomorrow? Zheng Chang asked the crux of the problem. We can't send him to the back garden every day, can we? Exactly. If he doesn't leave, will we still have a good life in the future? Division Chief, why don't you talk to him and ask him to retract his divine ability? A pretty boy, why did he become a security guard instead of a good teacher? How good would it be to be a teacher? The salary is high, the benefits are good, and I can rest for 4 months a year. If it weren't for the fact that I don't have a diploma, I would also want to be a teacher. Baldy was also very worried about this problem. Others were afraid of Fang Yen, but he was also afraid of Fang Yen. However, he still comforted his subordinates and said, "You don't have to worry about this problem." What kind of person was he? How could he really be a security guard like us brothers for a lifetime? He was a dragon among men, a man that even Chairman Liu and Headmaster Zhong valued. Don't worry, he won't be able to work for long. Maybe he'll leave in a few days. Everyone felt that what Baldy said made sense. How could a young hero like Fang Yen be a security guard for the rest of his life? With this thought, everyone's mood immediately became happy. Baldy remembered how he looked in front of Fang Yen just now, and he was secretly happy. He waved his hand and said, "Brothers, after work, we'll have little sheep hot pot at the entrance, my treat." Long live the division chief. Everyone shouted. Rosefinch Secondary, Fang Yen used to be very familiar with this school. But now he felt a bit unfamiliar when he walked there. The previous basketball court had been heavily renovated, and the east and west courts were combined into one, turning it into a dedicated basketball area. The embroidered chairs on the football field had been removed and replaced with soft and elastic cement. The students sat directly on the concrete floor to watch the game, and no longer prepared chairs. Also, the previous club's activity venues were all scattered. For example, the literature club was in a lecture hall in the teaching building, the English corner was next to the fountain, and they played pure English movies. There was also the Taekwondo club and the tea ceremony club, which were relatively independent. Now the school specially allocated a piece of land to build a building named Rosefinch Building, which was used as a library and for various club activities. Every society had a fixed venue for their activities. Even the tree-lined path under Fang Yan's feet, which he had walked hundreds of times before, had changed. The short grass had grown taller, the railings on both sides had been strengthened, and the strong parasol tree seemed to have aged a bit. A lot of things could happen in 3 years. He had already spent 3 years reflecting, so Flower City would be a new beginning for him. Watching, this was the origin of everything, and also the origin of the tragedy. If he hadn't come to Huaqing, if he hadn't encountered those things, if he had just been a quiet teacher, if that was the case, wouldn't his father not have died in battle? A strong sense of guilt rushed over him like a tidal wave, surging violently. It almost overturned the dam of one's mind. Come on, Fang Yen clenched his fist and said. His eyes were filled with blood, and it looked like a pair of black pupils were soaked in blood. His eyes were like a wolf's or a dog's, like a demon that crawled out of hell. Let's fight to the death again. Affected by his ruthlessness, the Taiji heart spun wildly, and the Taiji domain naturally unfolded. The Taiji heart released energy, sweeping up the withered leaves on the ground. Countless leaves were like countless butterflies, they flew up and down, gathering in the eye of the storm. Finally, they formed a ring, like a dragon of withered leaves that had a life of its own. The dragon of leaves flew around Fang Yan's body, baring its fangs and claws, as if it wanted to swallow the man in front of it in one bite. Huff! Fang Yan used the clear heart chant to forcefully suppress the ruthlessness in his heart. Bang! The dragon of leaves exploded, and the ground was smashed. The fallen leaves scattered in all directions, rustling in the wind. Fang Yan let out a long sigh of relief. The ruthlessness in his body was gathering more and more, becoming heavier and heavier. This wasn't a good sign. Even the pure and untainted Taiji heart began to feel uncontrollably collapsing when it was tainted by this. Fang Yan was very worried. He was worried that one day, the Taiji heart would no longer be under his control. In other words, the Taiji heart would only start spinning when he used violence or was in a ruthless mood. If that was the case, wouldn't he become a monster? Don't worry, Fang Yan said to himself. They will come. They will definitely come. He can feel their presence. Fang Yan seriously thought about it, and walked towards his original destination. In the depths of the flowering shrubs, a beautiful girl watched the scene unfold in front of her with wide eyes. She walked to the place where Fang Yan was standing, and looked at the withered leaves that had been blown into tiny pieces, her eyes full of doubt and curiosity. What kind of man is he? The girl muttered to herself. 3 years ago, Fang Yan was an influential figure in Rosefinch Secondary. 3 years later, batch after batch of Rosefinch's students had left, and there were only a few students who knew him. It was currently the students' lunch break, and class would start in half an hour. The students weren't sleepy, and were gathered in groups of 3 to 5, chatting noisily. There were also some new students who had brought back their military training uniforms to try on. They would be participating in the new military training starting tomorrow. Fang Yan, who was wearing a white shirt, walked in the middle of the crowd, and naturally attracted the attention of countless students. Some people even pointed at him, feeling that he was a very strange person. A tall boy was handing out cigarettes to the students around him. When Fang Yan saw him, he walked over and said, "I don't object to you smoking because I know I can't stop you from smoking. But, can you change to an empty place?" You're standing at the door of the dormitory, it's very easy to cause a fire. The tall boy lit up the cigarette in his hand, put it in his mouth, and took a puff. He sneered and said, "Who are you? Who do you think you are?" Fang Yan smiled, and the cigarette in the tall boy's mouth was in Fang Yan's hand. The tall boy didn't see Fang Yan's movements clearly, and he didn't even notice that Fang Yan had made a move. But how did the cigarette end up in Fang Yan's hand? The tall boy reached out to grab it. He had already set his eyes on Fang Yan's arm, but when his hand reached out, he missed. He tried again, but he missed again. Young people tended to be irritable. He was ashamed and annoyed, and he reached out to hit Fang Yan's chest. Fang Yan's palm pulled back, and the fist that the tall boy reached out was hit back. His arm hung down, and his palm kept shaking. With a light touch from Fang Yan, his fist became red and swollen. The tall boy didn't dare to move again. He just looked at Fang Yan with fear in his eyes, who was smiling gently. Fang Yan's 2 fingers rubbed gently, and the burning cigarette was extinguished. He flicked his finger, and the cigarette butt flew into the trash can not far away. Ignoring the boys who looked at him in surprise, Fang Yan said with a smile, "This is the first time. What about next time?" A boy asked recklessly. "There is no next time," Fang Yan said in a stern tone. Some people said that young people should be allowed to make mistakes. In the past, Fang Yan also thought so. However, some mistakes could only be made once in a lifetime. Just once, it was already painful to the bone. When Fang Yan was patrolling the backyard, Zheng Chang from the security office ran over with sweat on his head. "Fang, Mr. Fang," Zheng Chang shouted while panting, "those punks are here. They came to trouble Director Kai." Fang Yan frowned and said, "I'll go take a look." Fang Yan followed behind Zheng Chang. When the 2 of them rushed back to the security booth at the school gate, they found a group of people making trouble at the gate. Baldy and another security guard on duty blocked the gate with their bodies, not letting these ferocious guys step into the school gate. Fang Yan looked at the crowd opposite and couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He actually found an acquaintance. Chapter 446. Brother Yellowhair, it's not that I want to trouble you, it's the people from Rosefinch Secondary Security Office who are bullying us too much. The road is facing the sky, we each walk our own path. We weren't even in their way, we were just looking in from the school's entrance and they attacked us. Is there still any law? The man with the earring stood next to a man with a head full of blonde hair and said indignantly. After being bullied by Fang Yan yesterday, he had been thinking of getting back at them. As a gangster, he was most afraid of losing face. If he lost face, how could he lead his underlings? Therefore, he asked his big brother to help him take revenge. Brother Xiaoxing is right, they bullied Brother Xiaoxing like this. Aren't they purposely making Brother Yellowhair lose face? On this street, who dares to make Brother Yellowhair lose face? On Rosefinch Avenue, Brother Yellowhair is invincible. Brother Yellowhair, there's a strange person over there. That guy is a bit strange, he seems to know some kung fu. Little Yellowhair held a cigarette in his hand, proudly blowing out smoke bubbles one after another, and said with a blank expression, "Let's talk things out, how can we beat people up? This is a society with the law, beating people up is against the law. I want to see who dares to hurt people at the school gate. You all went to the hospital yesterday, right? Did you bring the report? We have no other intentions today, just to talk to them about the issue of apology and compensation. Yes, yes, yes." Brother Xiaoxing nodded repeatedly. "Let's make him kneel down and apologize, then the injured brothers will each pay 100,000. We can't be too greedy." There were a lot of punks today, there were about a dozen people gathered behind a blonde man. And they were not here to cause trouble, but to negotiate. They said that the security guards from Rosefinch Secondary Security Office injured a few good youths who passed by the school gate. One of them hurt his spine, and another had his nose broken. They even brought the hospital report, saying that if the school didn't give them an explanation, they would call the police and the media to report the school's violent behavior. The other party had the advantage in numbers, and they were reasonable, because the people were indeed injured by the security guards. At least for now. They came to Xing Shui angrily to denounce him. If he didn't handle it well and the matter was brought to Principal Zhong Dai, he was afraid that Principal Zhong would dismiss him, the newly appointed security captain. He was not a philanthropist who would show mercy just because he had a little relationship with Fang Yan. Zhong Dai was strict in his studies and did not care about personal relationships. He was famous for being an iron-fisted principal. Baldy and another security officer stood in front of the gangsters, refusing to budge an inch. Baldy's expression was cold. He forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart and said, "All of you, leave immediately. Otherwise, I'll call the police to arrest you. This is a school, a place to teach and educate people. If you rascals dare to disturb the student studies, it's not too much to put you in jail for a few years." The yellow-haired man threw the cigarette butt on the ground and stamped it out. Xiaoxing quickly took out a tissue from his pocket and squatted on the ground to pick up the cigarette butt and wrap it up. He knew Brother Yellowhair's temper. He didn't like people spitting and littering everywhere. He was a successful, high-quality man who cared a lot about the public environment. Xiaoxing put the tissue with the cigarette butt in his hand into the trash can next to him. Then, he returned to stand beside the yellow-haired man. The yellow-haired man looked at Baldy and smiled lightly. He said, "Of course, we know that the school is a place to teach and educate people. But what's the purpose of letting students learn knowledge? It's to let students understand that if you hit someone, you're being unreasonable. Now, we're here with the injured to ask you for an explanation. It's a matter of course. Even the law has to protect us. Which law says that ordinary people can't go to the school gate to ask for an explanation? You're quibbling. They were the ones who blocked the school gate to cause trouble. Did they hit anyone?" "No, I didn't." "Did they push you? Or did they attack you in some other way?" "They called me Baldy," Baldy said righteously. "They insulted me verbally." The yellow-haired man glanced at Baldy's bald head and said, "They said you're Baldy. This is indeed their fault. Just because they insulted you verbally, you attacked and injured them? Is this the logic of how you deal with things? Is this the outstanding result of Rosefinch Secondary's education?" Baldy's mouth opened, but he didn't know how to refute this question. He wanted to say that he didn't hit them, but now Fang Yan was his direct subordinate and an employee of their security office. He finally understood why Fang Yan didn't want to be a good teacher but came to the security office. He came to avoid trouble and let him be the scapegoat, right? "Brother Yellowhair, they're here. It's that guy. It's the guy in the white robe who hurt us." A hooligan with acne on his face pointed to the distance and shouted excitedly. In the direction he pointed, Fang Yan followed Zheng Chang and slowly walked over. Brother Xiaoxing's face was flushed, and he seemed to be in a state of extreme excitement and madness. The guy who beat him up, the bastard who tied him up with a tie and hung him on a tree trunk, this scumbag, devil and cancer of society was about to receive his overdue justice. He would pay the punishment of losing his dignity and money. He deserved to die. Brother Xiaoxing felt that he had been invincible since he started his career. Didn't the hooligans or students of Vermilion Bird Street respectfully call him Brother Xiaoxing when they saw him? Yesterday was the lowest point of his life. It was the most shameful day of his life. Now, he was going to climb up from that low point. He wanted to revive the glory of the name Brother Xiaoxing, Brother Yellowhair. It's the kid in the white robe. Today, you have to help us brothers and cripple that kid. Otherwise, we won't have the face to mingle in the underworld anymore. Look at that arrogant, despotic, and insufferably proud look on his face. Just looking at him makes people feel unhappy. Who does he think he is? He's just a security guard, but he's even more arrogant than Brother Yellowhair. You mean him? Yellowhair finally saw Fang Yan's face clearly. Although they haven't seen each other for 3 years, and his temperament had changed a lot, but wasn't this the Fang Yan that they wanted to bully but were bullied instead? It's him. Brother Xiaoxing sneered. I'll recognize him even if he turns into ashes. But Yellowhair punched Brother Xiaoxing's face. He was extremely ruthless. Brother Xiaoxing's mouth was cracked, and blood quickly dyed his chin red. A purple-red fist mark appeared on his white and tender face. Before Brother Xiaoxing could react, Yellowhair kicked him in the stomach again. Brother Xiaoxing's body stepped back and fell to the ground. Brother Yellow Hair. A group of people looked at Yellow Hair dumbfoundedly. They didn't understand how things developed into this situation. The silly guy with a face full of acne opened his mouth and asked in a low voice, "Brother Yellow Hair, did you hit the wrong person? Didn't they come to the security office of Rosefinch Secondary to find trouble with the security guards who hit people? Why did the boss hit his own people now?" "It's him." Yellow Hair gritted his teeth and scolded. "These bastards, they're just pushing me into the fire pit." Yellow Hair trotted to Fang Yen, bowed to greet Fang Yen, and said with a smile, "Mr. Fang, long time no see. Do you remember me? I'm Yellow Hair, the one who had some misunderstandings with you before. Do you remember me?" Fang Yen looked at him in a trance and didn't answer his question. Of course, he knew this Yellow Hair. The incident with Brother Wolf behind him was one of the crises he encountered when he first entered Rosefinch 3 years ago. Because of the media's attention, he was almost hyped up as a perverted teacher who had an abnormal relationship with a female student. Although he quickly solved the matter with a thunderous method, he was still chased out of his rented house by his sister Li, who was worried about her daughter's puppy love. After that, he moved into Lu Chaoga's Rosefinch house and fought with waves of evil forces. In the end, his father, Fang Yixing, died in battle at the entrance of Swallow Dock. It could be said that the Brother Wolf incident was a watershed in his life. At that time, he was high-spirited, laughing and scolding. Other than feeling that there was a woman who was very annoying, he felt that the sky was blue and the water was clear. Even Baldy's bald head looked ugly and cute. How depressed and heavy was his mood now. After not seeing each other for 3 years, he really missed his life at that time. Unfortunately, he couldn't go back. Seeing that Fang Yen didn't respond, Yellow Hair thought that Fang Yen didn't remember who he was. He introduced himself even more diligently and said, "At that time, my face was smeared with chicken blood and I even held up a banner at the school gate to denounce you. Oh yes, I wrote kill and taste life. You were very angry and said that I wrote taste wrong and added a side at the side. Do you remember now?" Fang Yen finally pulled himself out of his memories. Looking at Yellow Hair's expectant face, he nodded and said, "I remember you." Yellow Hair was so emotional that he was about to cry. With red eyes, he said, "After that incident, I realized that being uneducated is indeed a very shameful thing. After that, I self-studied the law course at the Radio and Television University. I am now a university graduate. Give me another 2 years and I will be able to get my lawyer's license. Mr. Fang, you are my first teacher and second parent." Chapter 447. Fang Yen looked at the excited yellow-haired man and asked with a smile, "Did you self-study the law course of TV?" The yellow-haired man nodded proudly. From a hooligan who had tasted blood for blood to a knowledgeable and cultured night school graduate, it could indeed be said to be a huge change of being reborn. "You can become a lawyer in 2 years?" "Yes. I've been preparing for a long time. I'm confident that I can get a lawyer's license in 2 years." The yellow-haired man was even more proud. Fang Yan's eyes became sharp, as if he wanted to see through the yellow-haired man's internal organs and tear off his clothes and flesh. He said with a slightly sarcastic tone, "So, are you trying to tell me that you've become a knowledgeable and cultured hooligan?" The yellow-haired man's face turned red and he couldn't speak for a long time. 3 years ago, when I first saw you, you followed a bad guy to touch a girl's but in a small bar. The second time I saw you, you were lying in front of the school gate with blood all over your face. This is the 3rd time we met, right? You came to the school gate with a group of you from 3 years ago. Of course, you're knowledgeable and cultured now, and you're studying law. Some of the laws are even clearer than I am. In this field, you can be my teacher. You won't say that you're hooligans who cause trouble and harass the girls in the school. You made them into victims. You're not here to block the school. You said you're here to negotiate and find justice. You used to hate the media, but now you know how to use the media. You used to be afraid of the police, but now you know how to use the police to protect you. You proudly told me that you self-studied the TVU course, and you said that you can get a lawyer's license in 2 years, You've indeed improved, and you've grown to a level that I'm impressed with. What do you want me to say to you? To encourage you to achieve anything if you have a will? To praise you for turning over a new leaf? Mr. Fong, I didn't mean that, The yellow-haired man was so ashamed that he couldn't speak. He really hoped that Fong Yen could see his growth, and he was also eager for Fong Yen to praise him. Even if she patted him on the shoulder, it gave him the strength to move forward. He had experienced too many things in the past few years. He had fought and injured people, eaten and dashed, went to the police station, patted his wife, and touched a little girl's butt. However, those past events were like a wonderful popcorn movie, burning in the treasure house of life. Not a single trace was left. That time, he became Brother Wolf's chosen puppet. His face was covered in blood as he lay on the stretcher. Fong Yen angrily pulled him up and used his finger to smear the blood on his face. Then, Fong Yen seriously added a side to the word, taste. That scene replayed in his mind countless times, crashing into his soul again and again. The appearance of Fong Yen completely subverted his previous worldview. Before meeting Fong Yen, he thought that Brother Wolf's tattoo of a wolf's head was cool. He thought that his companion Zhang Quan Dan's lip stud was cool. He thought that little wolfhound's ability to drink 12 bottles of beer in one breath was cool. He thought that little pretty boy's ability to rely on his Lu Dehua appearance to be taken care of by all kinds of rich women was cool. Of course, until now, he still thought that little pretty boy was cool. He was born with skills that made people envious. However, after getting to know Fong Yen, he felt that Fong Yen was cool when he grabbed the glass bottle in his hand and broke it piece by piece. He was cool when he rushed up and lifted Brother Wolf's body. He was cool when he faced the gangsters and the media. He was cool when he used his finger to smear the blood on his face. Most importantly, he did not have Lu Dehua's face, but many young and beautiful girls liked him. It was as if a candle had suddenly appeared in a dark room, and Fong Yen was the one who had brought the candle to her. He felt that he should change and become a knowledgeable and charming man. So he began to study hard and became the most outstanding graduate of the TV university that year. He liked the law and began to strive for a lawyer's license. All of this stemmed from the influence of the man in front of him. He came to Rosefinch Secondary to look for Fong Yen several times, but he was disappointed every time. Today, he was surprised to meet him, but it was in such an awkward situation. Fong Yen looked at the yellow-haired man and said, "If you study hard day and night just to become a cultured hooligan, if you work hard to get a lawyer's license just to defend yourself and your companion's innocence, then I regret reminding you in the first place. I regret teaching you how to arm yourself with knowledge. It's better to let you taste blood. It's also less destructive to society." The yellow-haired man respectfully bowed to Fong Yen and said, "Mr. Fong, I know I was wrong. I relied on what I learned and became arrogant and complacent. I felt that I had a few drops of ink in my stomach, so I wanted to help my brothers to vent their anger. There was a problem with my mentality, and there was also a problem with my mind. I didn't use what I learned where it should be used. I'm sorry for your education." Fong Yan's expression softened a little, looked at the yellow-haired man and asked, "What's your name?" "My name is Xianxia," the yellow-haired man said embarrassedly. He also felt that his name was really not presentable. "My surname is Hai. My parents used to sell seafood at the ferry, so they named me San Xian." "San Xian, don't feel ashamed of your name." Fong Yen patted him on the shoulder and said, "You should work hard to make your parents proud of your name." San Xian nodded and said, "My parents are already very proud of me. They didn't let me go home a few years ago, but now they call me several times a month and ask me to go home when I have time. They will be even prouder in the future." Fong Yen smiled and turned his eyes to Xiaoxing and the group of minions he brought with him. Where Fong Yan's gaze landed, everyone took a step back in unison. How could they dare to go against a man that even their boss had to bow down to? San Xian's face was extremely embarrassed. He took the initiative to explain to Fong Yen, "Mr. Fong, this matter is indeed our fault. It's up to you to punish or punish us. If it wasn't me you met today, but anyone else in the security office, what would you do?" "Seek justice," San Xian said frankly. How do we seek justice? Ask them to apologize to the injured and pay for medical expenses. This is the standard method of our brothers in the underworld. Xianxia said. Otherwise, make the matter bigger. Most schools don't want negative news to be reported by the media. You guys are good at scheming. Fang Yan said with a smile, I won't beat you or punish you. I'll let you remember this. Mr. Fang, what do you mean? San Xian had a bad feeling in his heart. He respected Fang Yan, but he was more afraid of Fang Yan. This fear came from the bottom of his heart. It was as if this man could turn into a monster by opening his mouth or waving his hand. Dang, dang, dang. The school bell rang. There was a brief silence, then the whole ground began to shake. The clamor, the sound of footsteps, and the students rushing out of the classrooms were like a flock of sheep spreading around the school before gathering at the school gate. When they passed by the school gate, they found a strange and eerie scene. More than 10 men lined up in 2 neat lines. They stood on both sides of the gate of Rosefinch Secondary as if they were greeting guests at the entrance of a restaurant. Some of these men had terrifying tattoos, some wore cheap and dense ear studs, and some had colorful, non-mainstream hairstyles. These men looked like delinquents at first glance, but they were doing something that did not match their image at all. It's been hard on you, please go home safely. They bowed deeply to the students and shouted together. It's been hard on you, please go home safely. They stood up and performed the same etiquette to the next group of students. It was the peak time for students to enter and leave the school. Just as they raised their bodies, they had to lower their heads again to remind the students who passed by them to go home safely. Oh my God, isn't that the ear stud guy Xiaoxing? He's amazing, I heard he has a lot of underlings. Ah, that big fatso, he asked me for 100 yuan and hasn't returned it to me yet. What's his name again? The one with the scorpion tattoo on his neck is Brother Scorpion. I heard he's a famous gangster in this area. No one dares to mess with him. At that time, the owner of the students' cafeteria quarreled with him and he brought his men to smash the restaurant. The students were stunned by this scene. These hooligans were people they could not afford to provoke in the past. Now, they were bowing respectfully to them and asking them to go home safely in a considerate manner. Did the big bad wolf eat grass now? Many students took out their phones from their pockets in surprise to record this strange scene. It was rare to see such a lively scene. Fang Yan sat in the security booth and drank tea. Baldy and the others stood at the door with their heads held high. They stared at the gangsters with majestic and disdainful eyes. They tried very hard to express to the students that the reason why these gangsters were so docile and did such unreasonable things was because they were conquered by our domineering aura. Baldy's face was full of pride and glory. The few strands of hair on his head were fluttering in the autumn wind. Very silly and very unruly. Chapter 448. Director, how do you feel? Zheng Chang approached Baldy and asked in a low voice. I'm all right. Baldy said with a dignified face, looking like a leader. If they didn't have some ability, how could they enter our Rosefinch secondary security office? Do you think anyone can enter our security office? It's high. As high as a 9-story building, Zheng Chang said with a smile. Those hoodlums care about their reputation the most. They come to our school all day to show off. Don't they want people to think they're powerful? Today, they did something like this and lost so much face. Let's see if they still have the face to wander on this street in the future. I'm afraid they'll hide far away when they see our school students. Evil never triumphs over good. Even if Fang Yan didn't do this, I would still find a chance to teach them a lesson, Baldy said righteously. The Baldy said with a righteous air, after this incident, if they know their mistakes and can correct themselves, it can be considered a virtuous deed. Although Mr. Fang isn't a teacher now, he's still doing the work of educating people. San Xian stood next to Fang Yan and asked in a low voice, Mr. Fang, I want to ask you a favor. What is it? Fang Yan asked without turning his head. He was focused on drinking tea, drinking the big leaf tea that Baldy gave him. The tea was slightly astringent, just like his current mood. Can you be my teacher? If there's anything I don't understand, can you give me some pointers? Xianxia asked nervously. He was very nervous. Sure, Fang Yan said. Xianxia didn't expect Fang Yan to agree so easily. After a while, he said excitedly, Mr. Fang, you'll be my teacher from now on. I'll definitely work hard and won't let you down. You're not learning for me, you're learning for yourself, Fang Yan said. You'll be a hoodlum for the rest of your life, it has nothing to do with me, but I'm still looking forward to you becoming more outstanding and using your knowledge in more important places. Got it, Xianxia said, feeling enlightened. Fang Yan pointed to the hooligans who were standing at the school gate pretending to welcome guests and said, Take them home. Don't come to the school gate to make a fool of yourself again. This is a school, a place for students to learn. If I see them causing trouble here again, I'll hang them on a tree and make them shout these 2 lines at the students. I won't. They won't come again. I won't dare to come again, Xianxia promised before leaving with his men. Dong dong dong. Someone gently knocked on the window of the security booth. Fang Yan raised his head and looked over. The beautiful girl that he had once met was standing at the window and looking at him with a smile. What's the matter? Fang Yan asked curiously. Are you the school's security guard? The girl asked in a crisp voice. Fang Yan nodded and said, Yes. The girl looked at Fang Yan up and down, then pointed at the green security uniform on Baldy and said, Then why aren't you wearing a security uniform? You're lying, the girl pretended to be angry and said, How can you be a security guard? You don't look like one at all. How can a security guard look like you? I'm a security guard, Fang Yan explained. They're all standing outside, and only you're sitting in the security booth? You're the security captain? Also, you still haven't answered my question. If you're a security guard, why aren't you wearing a security uniform? Fang Yan was troubled for a while, then said in a small voice, The security uniform is too ugly. Ha, the girl laughed. I also don't think it looks good. Oh yeah, are you off work? I'll treat you to dinner, okay? Why would you treat me to dinner? Because I like you, the girl said. No need, Fang Yan refused. I already have a date. You really don't give me any face. I don't treat people so easily, the girl said coldly. What's your name? I'm a security guard. Do you know what my name is? I don't know. I clearly told you, the girl said angrily. My name is Su Chi. Do you remember it this time? I'll try my best, Fang Yan said with a serious face. He knew that this girl had a faint affection or a slight curiosity toward him, but he could only push her away. Because he couldn't accommodate too many people around him. I'm a security guard, I'll try my best to remember the name of every student in the school. If I forget, please forgive me. There are too many people, and my memory isn't very good. So boring. The girl turned her head and proudly left. When most of the students had left, Baldy walked in front of Fang Yan and said, Mr. Fang, it's time to get off work. Why aren't you going back to dinner? I'm treating my colleagues to hot pot. Do you want to join us? We haven't seen each other for a few years. Let's have a drink? After a pause, he added, You can call me director at work, but after work, we'll call each other brothers. I'm a few years older than you, so I'll be your big brother. There's no need to be so distant between brothers. Fang Yan raised his wrist and looked at his watch. He knew that Lu Chaoga might have already sent a car to pick him up, so he put down the teacup in his hand and said, You guys eat, I won't be going. I'll go back now. Fang Yan and the other 2 colleagues nodded and walked toward the bus stop not far from the school gate. He had an appointment with Lu Chaoga. Every day after work, a car would stop there to pick him up. Fang Yan walked to the bus stop, and there was indeed a large GMC limousine parked there. Before Fang Yan could walk over, a man in black pushed open the car door and jumped out. Mr. Fang, we meet again. The man in black took the initiative to greet Fang Yan. Qi Ning. Fang Yan shook hands with the man in black. Long time no see. Mr. Fang, Miss Lu sent me to pick you up. Qin Ying invited Fang Yan to get in the car. Fang Yan got in the car, and Qin Ying followed closely behind. The car was spacious, and the view was excellent. Each seat was an independent airline seat, made of Vanilla's superior leather, and had excellent support and comfort. At the same time, it also had electric massage heating and 360-degree rotation functions. Do you want a drink? Qin Ing opened the wine cabinet in front of him, which was filled with all kinds of expensive drinks. There were a few round grooves on the wine cabinet, and 2 rows of crystal-clear, slender, round wine glasses were inverted. No need. Thank you. Fang Yan said. What do you want to see? Qin Ing asked again. The ceiling was installed with a voice-activated TV, which could watch TV programs from more than 100 countries around the world. I want to rest for a while. Fang Yan said. Then I won't disturb you. Qin Ing finally shut up. Like the early spring awakening, urging my heart, can't wait any longer. Empty infatuation, moving people's hearts. Happy times, it won't be biased. Blissful time, it will not be partial, will be divided into 2 hearts. The independent headphone system and the car's powerful surround sound system played an old Cantonese song by a Hong Kong and Taiwanese actress. The voice was magnetic and the singing was affectionate, making people feel faintly sad. Fang Yan looked at the scenery outside the window, thinking how beautiful it would be if time could be turned back. Where's Chaoga? Fang Yan asked. Miss Lu is in the office, she still has a report to do. Qin Ing answered. She said she'll rush back to have dinner with you. Fang Yan stopped talking, and his eyes once again looked at the towering buildings outside the window and the withered old tree branches on both sides of the road. The autumn wind was cool, and the city was full of killing intent. Lu Chaoga wasn't having a meeting in the office, but in a bustling supermarket. She was wearing a black professional suit tailored for her by the world's top clothing brand, Angel. On her hand was a limited edition Queen's watch produced only 99 pieces by Patek Philippe. This watch was popular all over the world because it was worn by the Queen of England. The Hermes scarf around her neck was intellectual and exquisite, and her high heels were black and shiny, spotless. Such an elegant and beautiful woman stood out like a crane in a flock of chickens. She didn't fit in with the aunties around her who were carrying baskets or pushing shopping carts. Many people looked at her with eyes full of doubt or hostility, and some people even said that she was a mistress who came to buy groceries to please her sugar daddy, and so on. Her assistant quietly pushed the shopping cart behind her. In front of them, on the left, and on the right, there was an inconspicuous man forming an iron triangle that surrounded her in the middle, so that they could get close to her in the shortest time possible in the event of an accident. Lu Chaoga didn't care about her surroundings, and she didn't care about the gossip floating in her ears. The sad experience when she was young had long made her heart as strong as the toughest diamond. She held a small piece of paper in her hand and was carefully studying the scribbled words on it. Scrambled eggs with tomatoes. He doesn't like to eat too sweet food, but scrambled eggs with tomatoes is an exception. Broccoli gravy soup. He drank 2 bowls yesterday, and there's no broccoli at home, so we need to replenish some stock. And fish. He ate some of every kind of fish, so which kind of fish does he like? Then let's just buy some of each kind. Lu Chaoga kept stuffing the shopping cart with the fresh ingredients she had bought, and the shopping cart was already piled up like a small mountain. Baby vegetables. He likes to eat baby vegetables. Buy more vegetables. Lu Chaoga's face was full of seriousness, as if she was doing the most important thing in the world. What she didn't know was that when she bent over to take the vegetables, her full breasts, plump buttocks, and sexy waist that curved like a half-moon exuded a fatal attraction. Women who buy groceries are the most beautiful. Chapter 449. Lu Chaoga didn't go home, so Fang Yan didn't have anyone to talk to. He sat downstairs and drank a cup of green tea, then returned to his room to fill the bathtub with water and buried his body in the pool. As soon as he entered the state of suspended animation, the voice-activated phone installed next to the bathtub rang. Wow, Fang Yan got out of the pool, picked up the phone and asked, "Who is it?" "Mr. Fang, there's a guest." The voice of the nanny, Aunt Lu, came over. "Do you want to invite him in?" Fang Yan looked stunned, and the big drops of water on his hair slid down his cheeks. "Since when did I become half the owner of this villa? When Lu Chaoga wasn't here, did I have the right to receive or expel the guest?" Fang Yen was very nervous. He seriously replayed the interaction with Lu Chaoge in his mind again and again. He drank 3 cups of tea, ate 2 meals, and said dozens of words. These shouldn't cause her to get pregnant, or make her mistakenly think that he was pregnant, right? Thinking that he was innocent, Fang Yen couldn't drive away the guest who came to visit. Because if his relationship with Lu Chaoge wasn't so close, he had to respect her more, and also respect her friends. If Lu Chaoge had become his woman, he could drive away all the guys he didn't like or who were too handsome. Of course, this kind of bullying behavior, which thought that he was nobler than women and loved and protected women, might be scolded as the sand pig doctrine. If there was such a day, Fang Yen didn't mind being a pig. "Invite the guest in for tea," Fang Yen said. "Okay, Mr. Fang." The nanny quickly agreed. After hanging up the phone, Fang Yen got up and took a cold shower. He wiped his hair and body clean, changed into the white satin clothes that he usually practiced martial arts, and went downstairs. Because he had just taken a shower, his face was ruddy, and he was in high spirits. Dressed in a white shirt and black shoes, he had an outstanding temperament. When he walked down the stairs, he gave off the feeling of a graceful and beautiful young man. "Long time no see. Mr. Fang is still as elegant as ever." The guest put down the teacup in his hand and praised. The man was handsome and had a calm demeanor. There was a faint smile on his face that made people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. His eyes were gentle and deep, making people feel that he was a kind person, but also a scheming person. It was rare to see a scheming and kind person receive such an evaluation. His white shirt was lined with a checkered waistcoat, and his tailored blue suit made him look both businesslike and fashionable. On his wrist was an exquisite watch with a brown crocodile leather belt. Fang Yen couldn't recognize the brand of the watch, but he really liked it. One of the 4 young masters of Flower City, Jiang Zhulu. Fang Yen had been silent for 3 years and had also disappeared for 3 years. His mentality and temperament had undergone earth-shattering changes, but his old friends were also growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The Jiang Zhulu sitting in front of him might still have the name of the 4 young masters of Huaqing, but Fang Yen could be sure that the Jiang Zhulu now was no longer the Jiang Zhulu of the past. While Fang Yen was sizing up Jiang Zhulu was also sizing up Fang Yen. The 2 men's gazes met in the air, and then they smiled knowingly. Fang Yen walked in front of Jiang Zhulu and said, "Eldest young Master Jiang, you flatter me. Our Fang family is a small family, and we don't have any temperament or elegance. On the other hand, eldest young Master Jiang is reserved and has an extraordinary temperament. One look and I can tell that you have the demeanor of a great family." Jiang Zhulu laughed heartily and said, "I can treat other people's praise as a cool breeze, and it's over after hearing it once. But if Mr. Fang is willing to praise me, then I will accept it. This isn't something that happens often." "Of course." Fang Yen nodded. "We're mortal enemies after all. The fact that I'm willing to praise you like this proves that you're a worthy opponent." Jiang Zhulu smiled wryly and said, "To borrow a phrase from Mr. Fang, the Jiang family is a small family. Mortal enemies are too heavy a burden for us to bear." Fang Yen sat down on the sofa across from Jiang Zhulu, and Aunt Lu brought him a cup of hot tea. Miss Lu said that Fang Yen liked green tea, so she had prepared the best white tea before he came. It cost 10 or 20,000 taels of gold. Only after Aunt Lu left did Fang Yen turn to Jiang Zhulu and ask, "You're not here to see me, are you?" "I am," Jiang Zhulu said with a smile. He took out 2 elegant but fragrant invitation cards from his pocket, got up, and handed them to Fang Yen. He said, "I wanted to invite Chaoge alone and pretend that she didn't know you were back in Huaqing, but I think that's a little petty, as if you still can't let go of what happened back then. It's been so long, you've won against Lu Chaoge, and I have another woman. Let bygones be bygones. If you don't mind, why don't we go to the wedding?" Fang Yen took the invitation card, which said that Mr. Jiang Zhulu and Miss Jiang Xianxia had tied the knot. Jiang Zhulu was going to marry a woman from the Jiang family. The Jiang family and the Jiang family were connected through marriage after all. Could it be that the Jiang family had been very satisfied with the Jiang family's performance over the past few years, or that Jiang Xianxia was very happy with Jiang Zhulio's performance? Congratulations, Fang Yan said in a low voice. If I have time, I'll be there to congratulate you personally. Women who bought groceries weren't necessarily the most beautiful, which meant that men were lying to you. However, beautiful women who bought groceries were simply so sexy that it made people feel hopeless. They stretched out their fair and slender hands that were smeared with various kinds of nail polish and picked out a bundle of vegetables or a few eggplants from the shelves. Then, they frowned slightly and pursed their red lips. The question of whether to choose 2 cucumbers or a box of bitter gourd made them hesitate for a long time. Lu Xiaoga didn't have a desire to buy groceries. Most of her items, including her clothes and shoes, were custom-made by her assistant at home when she was slightly free from work. Once the custom-made items were completed, they would be sent over in batches. However, she felt that buying groceries was a very important matter. She had to personally go to the supermarket to pick out the freshest meat and vegetables that were most suited to his taste. Then, she would go home and cook them personally. She would complete all the processes by herself. This way, her happiness would be doubled. Lu Xiaoga felt very happy now. This was because she finally had something else to do after work. It wasn't just work, it wasn't just reading books, it wasn't just watching boring television dramas or pretending to have orgasms. She didn't have to deal with complicated interpersonal relationships or think about those troublesome conspiracies and plots. She could be like other women, go to the market to buy a big basket of good vegetables and then go home to cook soup with her bare hands. The most important thing was that there was a man at home for whom she was willing to cook soup. After Lu Xiaoga chose several kinds of delicious and precious fish, her assistant, and Jing had to remind her, "Boss, the cart can't fit anymore. Should we get them to bring another cart over?" Can't fit anymore? Only then did Lu Xiaoga retract her thoughts from the small piece of paper in her hand. She turned to look at the shopping cart that was piled up like a mountain and said regretfully, "There are still a lot of things that I haven't bought. Boss, we'll just buy the items that you need the most. As for the other minor items, we can make a list and get the housekeeper to buy them, or I can buy them myself." And Jing looked at the mechanical watch on her wrist and said, "You've been out for 29 minutes. You're about to cross the crisis line. We have to escort you back." Lu Xiaoga knew that what Jing said made sense. When had she ever had a comfortable day all these years? The Rubik's Cube was a Pandora's box that she had opened with her own hands, attracting batches and batches of demons and devils to surround and covet her. Time and time again, killing intent after killing intent, it was truly exhausting. Lu Xiaoga nodded and said, "Then let's go back." Although she looked cold, she was a boss who was very willing to think for her subordinates. If there was a crisis, it would be the protectors around her who would be the first to rush out and fight with their lives. They were the most dangerous targets. A man in black pushed the shopping cart over to pay the bill. Lu Xiaoga and Jing walked toward the surface parking lot under the escort of 2 men in black. The underground parking lot was too dark and desolate. There were too few people and too many surveillance blind spots. It was easy for all kinds of accidents to happen. If the car was parked on the surface, with the huge flow of people in the shopping mall, it would not be easy for those peeping behind the scenes to do anything even if they wanted to. They also did not dare to brazenly expose themselves in front of the public. The engine of the custom-made bulletproof Mercedes-Benz was on. The driver in the driver's seat could start the car at any time to evacuate or drive the car anywhere to pick someone up. Sitting in the passenger seat was a middle-aged man who wore glasses and looked like a bookworm. His nickname was Bookworm. He constantly patrolled the area to prevent any suspicious people from approaching. A man in black opened the car door and Lu Xiaoga bent down to get into the car. And Jing sat beside Lu Xiaoga as the car door closed. The Mercedes-Benz slowly started up as another escort car followed behind it. The car drove out of the bustling shopping mall and onto the main road, heading for the flower district where Lu Xiaoga's villa was. And Jing felt an itch on her head. She reached out and grabbed a black bug. "Why is there a fly here?" And Jing exclaimed. "Gotcha!" The fly's body suddenly exploded. White light blazed as it turned into a palm-sized saucer-shaped communication device. "This is a genetic bomb. Once it explodes, none of you will be left." A man's calm and powerful voice sounded from the communication device. He didn't remove his original voice and use a mechanical voice, proving that he didn't care if these people knew his true identity. Then, congratulations. You've been kidnapped. Chapter 450. The development of technology had pushed the technology of crime forward. In the past, people had to slash with knives, stab with swords, strangle with ropes, and poison in drinks. There had to be something in contact with the human body. Right now, the criminals were thousands of miles away, and it was possible for them to carry out a large-scale massacre. All Jing did was grab a tiny black fly from her hair, but the fly instantly exploded, turning into a genetic bomb that could communicate and explode. It was even more powerful than Monkey Sun's 72 transformations. Lu Chaoga had been busy with the research of the Rubik's Cube in recent years, so it was impossible for her not to know the notoriety of the genetic bomb. And Jing was originally an outstanding graduate of a famous university. After interviewing for a job at Chaoyan Technology, she was placed in an important position by Lu Chaoga and promoted to a business assistant. Over the years, she had followed Lu Chaoga and seen too many conspiracies and hunts. She also had a deep understanding of the genetic bomb. As for the driver and the bookworm in the passenger seat, they were all carefully selected security personnel by the Qin family. Their understanding of the genetic bomb was deeper than anyone present. Hearing the man on the communicator say that it was a genetic bomb, everyone was extremely shocked but did not panic. The driver continued driving calmly, but a thin layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. The bookworm took off his glasses and wiped them with a silk handkerchief. When he put them back on, his eyes that looked casual earlier were now emitting a frightening and fierce light. There was an alarm system on his glasses. If there was a crisis in the car, he could send a message through the glasses in time. At the very least, the guard car following behind didn't know if anything had happened here for the time being. If they could receive the alarm, they could take timely action or report the kidnapping to a higher-level figure. Unfortunately, his attempt failed. The alarm could not be sent out, and the car they were in was shut down by the holographic screen. They had lost contact with the satellite in the sky. Everything was under the enemy's control. Bookworm, are you feeling very disappointed now? A man's pleasant but disgusting voice came from the communicator. The king of individual soldiers who wreaked havoc in South Africa, the legendary figure who single-handedly wiped out half of Chief Akamsi's army, after returning to Wuxia and being taken in as a servant by the Qin family, her days became more and more comfortable, and she became more and more careless. Don't you feel powerless and aggrieved that you can't do anything? Don't waste your time. The gadget in your hands is called King Kong. It has a shielding program installed in it that can block all signals and wavebands in the car. Don't try to dismantle it, because if you move, I will immediately detonate the bomb. Needless to say, the button to detonate the bomb was pressed under my thumb. As long as I use the slightest bit of force, or if I'm not careful, you'll be incinerated into thin air by that beautiful green liquid. Not only you, but also the car you're sitting in. Nothing will be left. After a pause, the man continued, "Oh, I almost forgot to tell you that your every move is under my watch. Allow me to introduce myself. I am a sovereign. Don't try to resist me because I really like killing people." Bookworm sat quietly in the front row, not saying a word, not accepting the mockery and provocation of the sovereign. He was not surprised that those people knew his past information so clearly. With the expansion of the influence of the Rubik's Cube and the increasing importance of Lu Chaoga, he was sent to replace Qin Ying as Lu Chaoga's security captain, directly responsible for Lu Chaoga's personal safety. In these 2 years, he had defeated countless snipers. In such a long confrontation, if they wanted to understand a person, they could even find out how many times he had peed on the bed when he was a child and how old he was when he was weaned. He had such an ability. "What do you want?" Lu Chaoga asked aloud. "The goddess. We want the goddess. We only want the goddess." The man said with a smile, "Miss Lu, don't get me wrong. The goddess we are talking about is not you. Perhaps you don't know, but our organization has constructed a plan to capture the goddess. We will use any means and pay any price to get the goddess from your hands. Yes, the goddess is the Rubik's Cube. This does not mean that we deny Miss Lu's appearance. Miss Lu is a one-in-a-million beauty, a rare goddess. Unfortunately, I don't like women. No matter how beautiful a woman is standing naked in front of me, I can't have the slightest interest. We are more interested in the Rubik's Cube goddess. As long as we have her, our children and grandchildren will not have to worry about food and clothing, and can even become the master of this world. Miss Lu, I don't think you will let us down, right? No. Lu Chaoga's voice was crisp. What a woman with character. If I were a man, I think I would fall in love with you. The man's voice came from the intercom. But what are you going to do? Your life is in my hands now. As long as I use a little force, such a beautiful body will be blown to pieces. How regrettable is that? Even if I am not a man, I will feel sorry for those who are secretly fascinated by you. The Rubik's Cube goddess, this is the code name they gave you. You must like it very much, right? Lu Chaoga was not interested in continuing to talk to the Lord God, but said to Bookworm in the front passenger seat, I leave this matter to you. Everyone should do what they are best at, and now they encountered the field that Bookworm was best at. What she had to do was to trust Bookworm and wait quietly. Do as they ask, Bookworm said. He took King Kong from Njing's hands. At least he had no way to get rid of this little thing. If he could, he really wanted to press down the window and throw it out. However, he knew it was impossible. This was because the moment he pressed the window, King Kong might have already exploded. Besides, who knew if those people had any tricks up their sleeves? The enemy could take risks, but he couldn't drag Lu Chaoga to take risks with him. He knew how important Lu Chaoga was to the Qin family now, and how much the elders of the Qin family valued her. If it wasn't for the talented Miss Qin supporting them, those proud figures of the Qin family would probably be suppressed by her. It was not a pleasant thing that the person in charge of the subsidiary company was too capable. No king would use a general who was difficult to control. Fortunately, at least for now, the two sides were still in the honeymoon period. How to get rid of King Kong in his hands was really a tricky problem. Since Miss Lu doesn't want to talk to me, then, Bookworm, let's communicate directly. Do as I say, and obey every word unconditionally. The voice of the Lord God became cold and determined. Lu Chaoga's attitude completely irritated him. The first thing you have to do is to get rid of the escort car behind you in a minute or something. I don't care what reason you use, but your every move is seen by me. If they do anything suspicious, I will put the debt on your head. Don't forget, I like to kill people, and I like to kill beautiful women even more. They exist in this world. It's really annoying. The Bookworm didn't waste this precious time and motioned the driver to turn the car to the fast lane on the innermost side of the main road. Slow down the speed, and then turn left quickly when the red light is about to shine. When the guard car behind wanted to follow, a large number of cars had already rushed over from the left and right sides, blocking them in place and making them unable to move. Beautiful. The Lord God praised. The second thing is to drive into the Seaview lane and go in the direction of the Seaview platform. Without the Bookworm's explanation, the driver had driven into the Seaview lane. The Seaview lane was the main lane to enter the seaport. There was a lot of traffic. A car squeezed in the middle would soon be surrounded by a long line of cars. The front and back were impenetrable, and it was difficult to escape. The guard team lost contact, and there was no external force to rely on. The car was trapped in the middle of the traffic, and the hope of self-help was slim. Now the situation was even more critical. The sweat on the driver's forehead was getting denser, and the blood in the Bookworm's eyes was getting stronger and stronger. His eyes were looking at the surrounding environment sharply, looking for possible opportunities to break through. And Jing was just like her name. She sat beside Lu Chaoga as usual. She didn't speak or scream. She was no different from usual. But her right hand kept waving a button under the seat. It was the alarm device of the car's security system. Even if she knew that the chance of success was very small, but what if the headquarters received their message? Lu Chaoga was very comfortable. First, she lay on the seat and listened to the light music in the car for a while. Finally, she was a little bored, and simply pulled out a fashion magazine from the back of the seat to read to kill time. She had fantasized about such a result countless times. She knew that there would be such a day after all. As long as the Rubik's Cube was in her hands, those people would not give up. She could escape a hunt, she could escape 10 traps, but could she escape 100 ambushes? Whether she was there or not, the Rubik's Cube must be there. Therefore, she simply refused the Lord God's request to take away the Rubik's Cube. There was no room for discussion or negotiation in this matter. She said that she would give a huge Chaoyan empire to Fang Yen. This was her promise to him. Who said that a woman could not promise a man? Chapter 451. Aren't you afraid? The Lord noticed Lu Chaoga's ease and asked doubtfully. Lu Chaoga's eyes are still on the gorgeous style of clothes in the magazine, thinking that she should order a batch of autumn clothes. Although she has enough clothes, it's best not to repeat them. Otherwise, men will be tired of looking at them. Hearing that the Lord is still asking questions, she answered perfunctorily and said, "Afraid. Aren't you afraid I'll kill you?" The Lord is very curious about women. The more you don't understand a woman, the more curious you are. Afraid. I don't see you afraid. Lu Chaoga finally looked up and said in a sarcastic voice, "I've prepared for the worst. Now that moment has not come." In the battlefield of feelings, there is no fairness, only who loves who more. Lu Chaoga did not know what kind of feelings he had for Fang Yen. Was it familial love, adoration, attachment, or perhaps attachment? She has never thought about this topic. Because for her, it doesn't matter. She lost her parents when she was a child and was an orphan living in the enemy's home. Her heart has long been hard, and her blood has long been cold. Later, the miraculous appearance of her aunt gave her a clear understanding of her family. Where there are relatives, there is home. Although her aunt was burned to such a horrible appearance, she is also her most precious and only relative. It is for this reason that she knows that her aunt is doing something crazy and does not object to it. She understands her aunt and understands how desperate and crazy it is to live and die. However, her aunt, who loves her the most, is also dead. If no one in the world loves you, then find someone you love. Fortunately, there is Fang Yen. The man who was betrayed by her, the man who blocked the knife for her, the man who pulled her out of the mud again and again. If there is still light in the world, it is the place where Fang Yen is. If there is warmth in the world, it is when they watch the fireworks under the same sky. Lu Chaoga's life was complicated yet simple, pitiful yet happy. The 3 years of rapid development of the Rubik's Cube were also the most dangerous years for Lu Chaoga's personal safety. Countless conspiracies, countless traps, countless fire pits, countless assassinations, countless poisons and drinks, but she had survived them all. She did not complain, and no one would listen to her. She had never thought of retreating. She had nowhere to retreat to. She had escaped too many times. She was lucky. This time she did not avoid it. That was her fate. Sometimes, luck and fate were just a step apart. The Lord was silent for a long time. When everyone thought that he had disappeared or was busy with other things, his voice came again. He sighed and said, "You are the most amazing woman I have ever seen. I don't want to say thank you." When faced with a hostage who had kidnapped you, even if he praised you as the most beautiful woman in the world, you wouldn't have any good impression of him. Lu Chaoga's eyes had turned to the magazine again, and she had lost interest in talking to the Lord God. She just couldn't understand, how could there be such a long-winded kidnapper? Didn't he understand that talking too much leads to mistakes? The more you talk, the easier it is to expose your own information and give the opponent a chance to take advantage of it? Mr. Bookworm, oh, perhaps it is more appropriate to call you Mr. Tiger? Now, I need you to do a very important thing. You don't mind self-dormancy, do you? The voice of the Lord was teasing. You know your existence is a threat to us. We don't want to go to the devil's cave, you are still alive, and several young men can't get close. Thank you for your attention to me. The bookworm said coldly. He pressed the watch button on his wrist, and a thin needle popped out of the watch's steel hole. He pricked the acupuncture point on his neck with the thin needle, and his body immediately collapsed on the seat. "Thank you for your cooperation," the Lord God said to the unconscious bookworm. "Turn left at the first intersection ahead. There is a big truck parked on the roadside. Drive your car along the iron plate into the truck." The Lord God's words were obviously directed at the driver, because now only the driver can execute his order. Lu Chaoga did not speak, and the driver would not refute. He turned the steering wheel smoothly, and then drove their Mercedes-Benz through the iron plate into the truck compartment. Clang! The truck door closed automatically, and the compartment was as dark as night. The dashboard of the Mercedes-Benz flashed a faint green light, and the faces of several people in the car were as gloomy as ghosts. They felt that the truck began to move, driving to a distance that no one knew. Devil's Cave? What is that place? You don't hit a smiling face. Jiang Zhulu has been smiling, and his posture is very low, so that Fang Yan can't reach out and hit him in the face. Fang Yan doesn't like Jiang Zhulu, and he doesn't like his father Qiang Longtan even more. Even quite disgusted. The father and son of the Jiang family are both hypocrites. Just because there is no evidence for something doesn't mean it didn't happen. When her aunt died, Lu Chaoga was heartbroken, and the courage to survive was to revenge. She wants to repay the pain the Jiang family gave her tenfold, 100-fold. After 3 years, Jiang Zhulu came to invite Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga to attend his wedding, pretending that nothing had happened. What kind of drama was he putting up? Hearing that Fang Yan is willing to make time to attend his wedding, Jiang Zhulu was very happy, and said with a smile, "Mr. Fang, your name shook Huaqing 3 years ago, and even after 3 years, there are still all kinds of legends about you in Huaqing. If I can invite Mr. Fang to attend my wedding, it will definitely add a lot of color to the wedding banquet. When the time comes, I will definitely toast to you a few more times." Fang Yan shook his head and said, "I don't drink. I've already quit." Jiang Zhulio's smile gradually disappeared, and he said with a regretful expression, "I've heard a little about your father. He is a true hero. The dead are long gone, and the living are like this. I'm sure Uncle has another kind of fun in heaven. Don't be too sad while you're alive." Fang Yan looked at Jiang Zhulu and said, "What kind of fun is there in heaven? Why don't I send you up there to take a look?" Jiang Zhulio's expression was very awkward. "Do you know how to talk? How can I continue this kind of conversation? The human world is fine. Why do I have to go to heaven? If you want to go up there and accompany your father." "I'm just joking, don't mind me," Fang Yan said with a smile. "We're friends, why would I send you up there? I'll send anyone who sends my father up there. You didn't harm my father, did you? Why would I do such a thing?" Jiang Zhulu said with a face full of anger. "Don't harm your family. What grudge do I have with you? Why would I do such a thing to your family? I also hope that Mr. Fang can find the real culprit and avenge your father. At that time, I will naturally accompany Mr. Fang and get drunk." "Thank you," Fang Yan said. "I don't drink. At that time, I'm sure Mr. Fang will be willing to drink to his heart's content." Jiang Zhulu was about to leave when Qin Ying suddenly barged in through the door. His face was ashen, and it was obvious that something big had happened. What happened? Fang Yan had a bad feeling in his heart. Qin Ying quickly walked in front of Fang Yan and said, "I just received a call from the guard team. They lost contact with Miss Lu's car. 3 minutes ago." "Tell me in detail," Fang Yan said coldly, suppressing the anger in his heart. "I lied to you. Miss Lu didn't stay at the research institute for a meeting, but went to the mall with her assistant to buy groceries." Qin Ying hurriedly explained, and reported the whole process of Lu Chaoga's disappearance to Fang Yan in detail. Miss Lu finished her shopping, and the convoy began to return. While waiting for the traffic light at the intersection of Huaqing, the car that Miss Lu was in suddenly turned left, and the guard team behind was blocked by other cars, unable to follow closely. After this sudden incident, the guard team immediately contacted the car that Miss Lu was in. However, Miss Lu's phone couldn't be connected, and Assistant N's phone couldn't be connected either. There were 7 other communication tools between the 2 cars, including satellite communication equipment and wave transmission equipment. All communication methods were blocked. While Qin Ying was reporting the situation, Fang Yan had already opened the map on his phone and started to search for the area where Lu Chaoge went missing. His eyes were glued to the map, as if he wanted to drag Lu Chaoge out of the map. They suspect that Miss Lu was kidnapped and are currently searching the area where the car went missing, Qin Ying said. The guard team reported back the situation and awaited further instructions. Damn it. Fang Yan grabbed the teacup in front of him and threw it at the opposite side. Jiang Zhulu, who was holding the teacup and listening to the conversation between Fang Yan and Qin Ying, couldn't dodge in time, and his forehead was hit by the flying teacup. The teacup smashed onto Jiang Zhulu's forehead, causing tea to splatter everywhere. A few tea leaves stuck to his face in an unsightly manner. The refined and elegant Huaqing's 4 young masters looked miserable and battered at this moment. Even a clay Buddha had some vitality, and Jiang Zhulu's ability to maintain his vitality was extremely good. However, when faced with the humiliation of having tea splattered on his face, it was hard for him to bear. Jiang Zhulu was furious. He jumped up from the sofa, wiped the tea off his face, and shouted at Fang Yan, "Are you crazy? What are you doing? I'm also very worried about Lu Chaoge's disappearance, but what does this have to do with me? What right do you have to throw a teacup at someone?" After flying into a rage, Fang Yan calmed down a little. He looked at Jiang Zhulu guiltily and said, "I'm sorry, I was too angry." Chapter 452. You're angry? Shouldn't I be? Can I hit someone just because I'm angry? Can I hit you just because I'm angry? Jiang Zhulu didn't believe Fang Yan's bullshit about hitting someone because he couldn't control his emotions. This guy didn't play by the rules, and he had been beaten up by him several times 3 years ago. Every little move he made had a deep meaning behind it, and he didn't realize it until the truth was revealed. Now, he was hitting him with a glass. What was he trying to do with Lu Chaoge's disappearance? Jiang Zhulu's hair stood on end, and a chill ran down his spine. His extreme wariness of Fang Yan made his anger disappear, and he calmed down as well. Fang Yan sat back down on the sofa and looked at Jiang Zhulu like a lone vulture. "I went back to Huaqing yesterday, and you came to give us an invitation today, and then Chaoge was kidnapped. Jiang Zhulu, how can I believe that you have nothing to do with this?" "It's a coincidence. It's all a coincidence," Jiang Zhulu said firmly. Jiang Zhulu said firmly. He didn't want to have anything to do with the kidnappers. "I feel bad that something like this happened in Chaoge. Chaoge is your lover, and she's also my family. I can promise you that I have nothing to do with this. If I had decided to kidnap Lu Chaoge today, would I have come to give you an invitation and let you humiliate me like this? That's hard to say." Fang Yan stared at Jiang Zhulu as if there was a flower on his face. "You and your father conspired to kill Chaoge's parents, but didn't you pretend to adopt her for so many years? Fang Yan, don't slander me. You need evidence. What evidence do you have to prove that we killed Lu Chaoge's parents? What evidence do you have to prove that I was the mastermind behind Lu Chaoge's kidnapping? If you keep trying to frame me, I don't mind suing you for slander. You won't get a lawyer," Fang Yan said calmly, "because you know very well in your heart that if you sue me because of this matter, it will only cause a big uproar. Moreover, it will confirm the fact that you are the murderers of Lu Chaoge's parents. You will only desperately want to disassociate yourself from this matter." Jiang Zhulu glared fiercely at Fang Yan and said, "So, you saw that it was difficult for us to defend ourselves, so you wanted to pour this basin of dirty water on us, father and son? I won't wrongly accuse a good person," Fang Yan said, "but I won't let any bad person go either. If you're the bad guy, we can only fight to the death." "It seems like we can never be friends," Jiang Zhulu said as he looked at Fang Yan. "I don't befriend people with evil intentions." "I hope you're right," Jiang Zhulu sneered. He walked in front of Fang Yan, picked up the 2 invitations on the coffee table, and turned to walk towards the door. Qin Ying's figure flashed and blocked in front of Jiang Zhulu. This was Lu Chaoge's house. When Lu Chaoga wasn't here, Fang Yan was the owner of this house. The owner didn't say anything, so how could he be allowed to leave as he pleased? Moreover, Fang Yan said that the kidnapping incident was related to Jiang Zhulu. Was it related or not? This matter had to be cleared up before he could leave. Jiang Zhulu looked at Fang Yan and sneered, saying, "What? You want to keep me here? If the owner wants to keep me here, then I'll really be an unwelcome guest and not leave." Fang Yan looked at Qin Ying and said, "Tomorrow is someone else's big day. How can we detain the groom? Let him go. We still have to go to his wedding tomorrow." Qin Ying was full of doubts, but still listened to the order and moved to the side. "Although I know you'll definitely refuse, I still have to say this. I'm also very worried about Lu Chaoga's disappearance. If there's a need, you can give me a call. My Jiang family also has some connections, so we'll definitely do our best to search for Lu Chaoga's whereabouts." Jiang Zhulio's voice was loud and clear as he said, "Lu Chaoga has misunderstood my Jiang family, but my Jiang family will always treat her as a family member." "Why should I refuse?" Fang Yan asked. "Go on, do your best to find her. When you find Lu Chaoga, I'll treat you to a drink." Jiang Zhulu took a deep look at Fang Yan and strode out of the villa. At the entrance of the villa's courtyard, a champagne-colored Bentley was parked. An old man in a well-ironed suit stood beside the car. When he saw Jiang Zhulu coming, he immediately opened the door of the KAI in a gentlemanly manner. Jiang Zhulu got into the back seat of the car, and the old man gently closed the door. After the old man sat down in the front passenger seat, the Bentley slowly drove out of the neighborhood. "Young master, you've been wronged," the old man said softly as he handed over a white and soft silk handkerchief. When Jiang Zhulu went in, he had an extraordinary bearing, but when he came out, he was extremely angry. It was obvious that the conversation inside wasn't very friendly. Jiang Zhulu took the silk handkerchief and wiped the water stains on his face and clothes. He said with a light smile, "Fang Yan is a mad dog. He bites anyone he sees, and he changes his attitude faster than flipping a page. He's just like that, and I've known him for a long time." "He bears a grudge against you, young master," the old man said. "Hatred is like a seed. The longer it lasts, the higher it grows. In the end, it will become a towering tree." He never thought of becoming friends with young master, so his words and actions are unrestrained. This kind of person is the most taboo, because no one knows when he will turn hostile. And when he turns hostile, he won't show any mercy. "Let him be," Jiang Zhulu said. "However, there's a piece of news that we should pay attention to. Lu Chaoga has disappeared. It's very likely that she's been kidnapped." "Young master, do you have a suspect?" No country can do without 3 types of people. Those with guns, those with pens, and there's also an idiot. Jiang Zhulu glanced at the Lu family's small building that was gradually getting further away and said, "I really want to know which idiot is helping the people get rid of a pest." "You'll find out eventually," the old man comforted him. "When the time comes, young master will treat him to a drink." Longtime Clubhouse. This was a luxurious business clubhouse that Longtime Group had invested nearly 1 billion to build. It was also named after Longtime Group and was one of the most private and high-end gathering places in Huaqing. Longtime Group was named after the names of its 2 founders, Qiang Longtan and Lu Mingtu. Lu Mingtu died young, and the 2 in Longtime Group's name had been missing. However, Qiang Longtan was extremely capable and turned the tide. He single-handedly propped up the company and led Longtime Group to carve out a big place in the new energy field. Of course, their good days ended 2 years ago. That was because another energy company had risen rapidly and lit up the entire sky like a comet. Chaoyan Technology, the energy technology company with the logo of 2 small red flames burning above and below, appeared out of nowhere. As soon as they appeared, they charged forward with an unstoppable, invincible stance, sweeping away everything in their way. They were not only a nightmare for Longtime Group, but also a nightmare for energy companies in Wuxia and even the entire world. Under the suppression of Chaoyan Technology, although Longtime Group was not as powerful as it used to be, it still used Qiang Longtan's magical operating methods and a large amount of financial support to wantonly merge with Shou Group, firmly occupying the second place in the energy field in Huaqing. The first and second place were natural enemies. The two companies fought fiercely against each other repeatedly. The chairman of Longtu Group, Qiang Longtan, had publicly announced through the media that if possible, he was very willing to expand the scope of cooperation with Chaoyan Technology. However, the strong female leader of Chaoyan Technology, Lu Chaoga, who was deified by countless media outlets, sharply rejected him. We can talk about acquisition, but not cooperation. Jiang Zhulu went to send invitations to Lu Chaoga and Fang Yan, inviting them to attend his wedding. This was also a show of goodwill. Lu Chaoga was pressing hard, and the Jiang family's days were not going to be easy. That woman was full of murderous intent. She was determined to take down Longtu Group. Unfortunately, it was unknown whether Lu Chaoga's luck was too bad, or whether Jiang Zhulu did not look at the almanac when he left the house. He and Fang Yan were chatting happily when news of Lu Chaoga's kidnapping came. This way, the Jiang father and son's goodwill intentions were thrown into a frozen lake. Sending invitations on the day Lu Chaoga was kidnapped, who would believe that you had nothing to do with this matter? Today, Longtu Club was not open to the outside world, because the son of Longtu Group's big boss, Jiang Zhulu, was going to hold his wedding here. The seats were full, and luxury cars were everywhere. As one of the 4 oldest families in Huaqing, they naturally had a deep foundation and a huge network of connections. High-ranking political officials, wealthy tycoons, celebrities, and celebrities all shone brightly, illuminating the night sky of Huaqing. Longtu Club was decorated with lanterns and streamers, and the largest hall, Phoenix Coming Morning Hall, was a sea of fresh flowers. Hundreds of thousands of fresh flowers formed a beautiful rural landscape. The closer they were to the front of the stage, the higher their status and seniority. Some of the young people who came to support were arranged slightly further back. For the wedding of Jiang Zhulu, one of the 4 young masters of Huaqing, other than Meng Xue, who never appeared in public, Lan Shanggu and Lu Shu came to support. They sat together with a few influential young masters in the circle, chatting and laughing, so they did not feel bored. Lan Shanggu looked rough and straightforward, but it was easy for him to get along with those young masters. Ever since Lu Shu's face was disfigured, he had become a monster in Huaqing. He spoke in a strange way, and his methods were cruel and ruthless. He gave off a gloomy aura that kept people away. Lan Shanggu chatted and laughed with everyone for a while. Then, he tilted his body slightly and approached Lu Shu, who was drinking his tea in silence. He said, "If the Jiang family pushed Jiang Shangxin out as bait 3 years ago, then has Jiang Zhulu satisfied the Jiang family or Jiang Shangxin? How did this happen?" Chapter 453. You have a close relationship with the Jiang clan. Is there a story behind this? Lan Shanggu looked at the willow tree and asked curiously. The Lu clan and the Jiang clan were related by marriage. Lu Shu and Jiang Zhulu were cousins. However, because of the Rubik's Cube, the little goblin that was hard to control, the two clans often fought against each other. They knew that if they didn't expose the truth, they could still be relatives. Therefore, even though Lu Shu was disfigured and the Jiang clan suffered heavy losses during the Rubik's Cube fight, the two clans were still on good terms, as if nothing had happened. If the Lu family had given the whereabouts of the real Rubik's Cube to the Jiang family or directly used Lu Zhaoga's aunt to negotiate terms with the Jiang family, there wouldn't have been a life-and-death struggle between the two families. The reason why Lu Zhaoga and her aunt could persist until the end, besides the appearance of Fang Yan, was that they had taken advantage of the greed of the two beasts, the Jiang family and the Lu family. How could Lu Zhaoga and his aunt fight against a giant like the Lu family with only their strength? Without the Lu clan's support, aunt would have died long ago. Lu Chaoga would have had no choice but to marry someone else. Of course, if it weren't for the Jiang family, the Lu family would have used all means possible to force Lu Zhaoga and her aunt to hand over the Rubik's Cube. Those two women were trying to walk a tightrope, and they actually succeeded in the end. In the end, the truth came out. The Lu clan knew they were tricked and the Jiang clan knew they were tricked. No matter how warm and natural their smiles were when they shook hands, How could there be no grudge between them? Lu Shu didn't like Jiang Zhulu. Outstanding people probably didn't like equally outstanding people. Hearing Lan Shanggu talking about the secret history of the wedding, the corner of his mouth curled up into a mocking smile. He sneered and said, Jiang Zhulu can't deal with Fang Yan, but can't he handle a woman? Lan Shanggu gave Lu Shu a thumbs up and said, that's a fair comment. However, this woman was no ordinary woman. She was a woman from the Jiang family. Who in Huaqing didn't know about the relationship between the Jiang family and Fang Yan? Although we brothers weren't there were hundreds of people who witnessed the big drama that happened in Yanjing City. For a period of time, calluses grew in my ears. What Fang Yan forced Jiang Junling to abdicate, what Jiang Junling defeated the grassroots hero, and what they were fighting over a woman. What kind of rumors didn't I hear? You've heard a lot, haven't you? Lan Shanggu lowered his voice and whispered, Jiang Zhulu has married a woman from the general family. Is he preparing to fight to the death with Fang Yan? What does the Jiang clan have to do with us? Lan Shanggu smiled bitterly and said, if it was in the past, we could drink red wine and watch the show. The more intense the fight, the better. But now we can't do that. Both of us are partners of Chaoyan Technology and distributors of Chaoyan's products. Who does Chaoyan Technology belong to? On the surface, it seems to belong to Lu Chaoga, but in reality, it belongs to the Qin family. But what is the relationship between Qin families Lu Chaoga and Fang Yan? In the end, their surname is Fang. Previously, we expected that the new energy products from the Rubik's Cube would be popular, but no one expected it to be to this extent, right? Let's talk about the past 2 years. After the Lan and Lu family became the agents of Little Flame's products, how many percentage points did the family's annual profit increase? 300%, and that's only because we are the agents. Lu Chaoga, that woman, has controlled our profits too tightly. The company sets the price and doesn't give us the right to set the price freely. Otherwise, how much profit could we achieve? Lan Shanggu's expression was both proud and helpless. He smiled bitterly and said, at first, we only wanted to establish a relationship with the Rubik's Cube and earn some quick money for the family. Now, we have all become the puppets of the Rubik's Cube. We can go up but not down, we can charge but not retreat. After tasting the benefits of the Rubik's Cube, if I tell you to transfer the agent rights to someone else, will the Lu family agree? Will you fight with your life? Anyway, I won't do it. How many years has it been since Chao Yen was established? It has only been a little more than 3 years since its establishment, and it has already developed to this point. In the future, as the energy crisis becomes more and more serious, the power that the Rubik's Cube can display will become more and more powerful. That will be the real harvest season for us. It would be a pity to withdraw now. Lu Shu gently shook the goblet in his hand, his posture elegant and calm. If it was 3 years ago, his performance could make countless women fall head over heels for him. Back then, the Casanova of Huaqing was a popular man among thousands of young girls and young women. Now that his face was disfigured, he had become repulsive. No one paid attention to him anymore. Some women who used to be close to him accidentally glanced at him and immediately showed a reserved smile. They picked up the goblet in front of them and made a gesture to invite him to drink. Before swallowing a mouthful of wine, they had already turned around, no longer with the seductive eyes that said, "I'm free tonight." Some women said that they liked his talent and inner qualities, but it was all nonsense. In the end, this was a world of face. You want to play with the Rubik's Cube, but the Rubik's Cube may not be willing to play with you. How did we sign the agency contract? Every 3 years. Now is the 2nd year. After next year, Xiao Yan wants to change agents. What can you and I do? Lu Shu said with a face full of disdain. Lan Shanggu laughed and said, so, aren't I hugging Fang Yan's thigh? If he is willing to help us, Lu Chaoga won't even say a no. You didn't see the look in Lu Chaoga's eyes when she mentioned Fang Yan. Io, what's so good about that kid? Whether he's good or not, I don't know. Lu Shu slowly sipped the red wine in his glass, maintaining his unique pace, which seemed a little out of place with the surrounding environment. But he definitely won't be bad to Lu Chaoga. A woman will fall in love with a bad man, but she will never fall in love with a man who treats her badly. Hit the nail on the head. As expected of the Casanova. Lan Shanggu praised. Lu Shu's sharp eyes swept over, and there was an unsuppressible hostility in those eyes. Lan Shanggu knew he said the wrong thing and didn't take it to heart. Right now, Lu Shu couldn't do anything to him, just like how he couldn't do anything to Lu Shu. They were two dogs, Chao Yen Technology's dogs, Lu Chaoga's dogs, or rather, Fang Yan's dogs. They found 3 agents to maintain a balanced development of the 3 legs of a tripod. They needed the Jiang family and the Lu family to fight and bite each other. This way, it would be easier for them to control, and it would be easier for them to make the market bigger and better. Of course, even if the Jiang family and the Lu family joined forces to fight with Chao Yen Technology for the right to speak, it wouldn't have any pressure on them. Because they still had the Qin family's huge sales system to help them sell. No matter what, the Qin family wouldn't stand on their side. Unless the Qin family wanted to become the biggest shareholder of Chao Yen, and joined forces with the Jiang family and the Lu family to force Lu Chaoga to abdicate. Was that possible? Thinking about it, they were a bit expectant. However, Lan Shanggu and Lu Shu both knew that there was a 99% chance that this would happen. Why would the Qin family give up on Lu Chaoga, who was easy to control and suppress, and choose Lan Shanggu and Lu Shu, a huge family with a lot of resources? Everyone understood the logic of not being able to get rid of a big family. Don't joke with me, Lu Shu said with a gloomy voice. Because that would make me feel like a joke. Lan Shanggu patted Lu Shu's shoulder and said, Brother, you misunderstood me, it was just a slip of the tongue. I really wanted to praise you in my heart. Lu Shu looked at Lan Shanggu and said, although we really want to get the long-term agent of Chao Yen Technology, our 2 families also need to maintain our dignity and independence. If we always put down our pride and bow, not only will they look down on us, even we will look down on ourselves. What do you mean? Close cooperation, Lu Shu said. Keep a distance. That makes sense. Lan Shanggu laughed and said, will Lu Chaoga and Fang Yan come to Jiang Zhuliu's wedding? It would be a slap in the face if he came, but it would be a slap in the face if he didn't come. The Jiang father and son are in a difficult position. Lu Shu lowered his head and drank his wine, not answering Lan Shanggu's question. Lan Shanggu felt bored and turned around to flirt with a young beauty beside him. On the tea stage surrounded by flowers, the lights shone brightly. In the warm and joyful wedding march, a couple walked out hand in hand. The applause below the stage was thunderous. Jiang Zhulu was dressed in a black suit, looking very handsome. He covered Shangxin's face with a white veil, looking extremely beautiful. When this beautiful couple walked out, everyone felt that they were a perfect match. After the MC finished his speech, it was the newlyweds' parents' turn to speak on stage. Qiang Longtan had a strong aura, but he only said the usual words of wishing his daughter a happy life after marriage. The representative of the Jiang family was Jiang Shangxin's mother, Li Yun. She was a charming young woman. Her daughter had already married someone else, but she seemed to have gone back in time and did not age. Even though we are holding a Chinese-style wedding today, I am a devout believer. I would like to use the Western wedding etiquette to ask this couple a question in front of all the guests and their relatives. Shangxin, are you willing to marry this man to become your husband? Love him, take care of him, respect him, accept him, and be faithful to him until the end of your life, regardless of sickness or health, or any other reason. Li Yun was very emotional. Tears welled up in her eyes when she thought about how she was about to marry her precious daughter off. I am willing, Jiang Shangxin replied in a sweet voice. Zhulu, are you willing to marry this woman to be your wife? Love her, take care of her, respect her, accept her, and make her the happiest woman in the world, regardless of sickness or health or any other reason. I am willing, Jiang Zhulu replied in a determined voice. I am not willing. At the same time, a low voice sounded at the entrance of the banquet hall. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.